News in Washington, D.C., I'm Benji Haya with this roundup of what's been making headlines this past week. Ukrainian officials say Russian strikes have hit Kiev as the United Nations Secretary-General visited the Ukrainian capital. From Riga in Latvia, William Denzelo reports.
Ukraine's Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba says the Russian cruise missile strike was a heinous act of barbarism that demonstrates Russia's attitude to Ukraine, Europe and the world. Thursday evening's attack came as UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres was in Kiev for talks with President Volodymyr Zelensky. The Ukrainian president said the cruise missile attack was an effort to humiliate the UN and all it represents, and that a strong response is required. Russia's Ministry of Defense confirmed the strikes destroyed a rocket and space industry facility. On his trip to Ukraine, which came days after a visit to Moscow, Guterres said intense discussions were underway to evacuate civilians from a besieged steelworks in Mariupol.
US President Joe Biden is asking Congress to approve $33 billion in new funding of security, economic and humanitarian assistance for Ukraine, which he says is necessary to help its forces defeat Russian attacks. It's in addition to the $13.6 billion already approved in March. That's as figures show the US economy shrank 1.4% in the first quarter of 2022, raising concerns of a recession. Elsewhere, the European Union's announced it'll begin winding back several COVID-19 measures. From Brussels, Trent Murray reports.
Between 60 and 80% of the EU population is estimated to have been infected with COVID-19, according to new estimates from the European Commission. The data comes as the bloc prepares to enter what it describes as a post-emergency phase of the pandemic. With a recent drop in infections and deaths linked to coronavirus, the EU also says it will start moving away from mass testing and the reporting of cases. But they've also warned that fresh surges and mutations in the future are likely and have called on member states to have plans in place ready to respond.
And Tesla chief executive Elon Musk has sold billions of dollars in stock in his electric vehicle making company after agreeing to buy Twitter. Caroline Malone has more details.
From Tuesday to Thursday, Elon Musk sold around $8.5 billion worth of Tesla stock, according to regulatory findings. That's after Twitter announced on Monday that they'd accepted an offer of $44 billion from Musk to buy the company. The Bloomberg Billionaires Index shows he's the world's richest man with a net worth of $252 billion. But much of it is tied up in his companies Tesla and SpaceX. Musk has to come up with $21 billion in cash to finance the Twitter deal.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. As we head into the third month of Russia's war on Ukraine, there's every indication that it is going to become a long, grinding conflict. But even if it is contained to Ukraine itself and does not drag NATO into direct conflict with Moscow, the Putin regime is now referring to the conflict as a proxy war between Russia and the United States. That was the phrase that Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov used earlier this week, and Foreign Affairs analyst Tim Marshall thinks that on this occasion, Vladimir Putin's top foreign affairs advisor is right.
He's not talking about a nuclear war. He's warning that you can't rule that out. It's because they're rattled. They saw the two American secretaries of state, Defense and the State Department, show up in Kyiv over the weekend and openly say what they're going to be giving the Ukrainians. They even listed the weapons. The Americans, I think, have made the calculation that they can shift this crisis from what was simply trying to manage it, damage limitation on the Ukrainian side, into a strategic opportunity to really inflict damage on the Russians themselves. So it is a proxy war, I'm afraid.
Russia's Ministry of Education says children will be taught about the justification for the war when they return to Russia's classrooms for a new academic year in September, suggesting the Kremlin thinks the conflict will still be underway then. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
A reminder again of this week's top stories. Ukrainian officials say Russian strikes have hit Kiev as the United Nations Secretary-General visited the Ukrainian capital. US President Joe Biden is asking Congress to approve $33 billion in new aid for Ukraine, as figures show the US economy shrank 1.4% in the first quarter. And the European Union's announced it'll begin winding back several COVID-19 measures, including mass testing and case reporting. That's the latest feature story news. I'm Benji Haya in Washington.
Following several months of negotiations, representatives at the Minnesota State Museum confirmed today that they've extended their final offer to the anonymous owner of the couch from the hit 1970s sitcom The Mary Tyler Moore Show.
We hope an agreement can be reached soon because after months of back and forth, we just need a straight answer here.
Healy noted that the brown velvet artifact would be a welcome addition to its media wing, which boasts a robust collection, including several iconic Minnesota pieces.
We have the fence from Grumpy Old Men. We acquired the puck from the Mighty Ducks several months ago.
Healy and his team made their first bid in December of 2012 and have cycled through 5 rounds of negotiations, reportedly tripling their initial offer in an urgent attempt to secure the sale.
It's not every day that an artifact of this significance comes on the market and went... Oh my God, it's him. It's him, okay? Hello, sir. What would you say if I went up another 2?
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
And we're back.
Hey, I did it right. Say something.
Me out me.
All right. That was
abiogenesis. That's the thing.
What was the other one?
Octopodes.
Octopodes, yes, thank you.
It's from like a month ago. Nobody knows what that is anymore.
Yeah, only the super regular listeners.
Listen to the archives.
Over at freetalklive.com. Captain's log, stardate 05012022. This is Free Talk Live. What are we? We are a radio show where you can call in and talk about anything. No topic is off limits. The only limits there are in this show is don't say any of the 7 words that George Carlin so eloquently pointed out. The FCC frowns upon that. So, none of the cussing, and you can't say the P word either, as it turns out. It rhymes with this.
Oh.
That's one of the 7 words. So
if it's one of the 7, then you already can't say the 7.
Right, but like that one seems like it's tame, right?
It does seem tame.
Yeah. So we've let that one slide a little bit, but my producers have let me know that it's one of the 7 words. So we're just going to refrain from.
So I can't refer to someone as being thatted off.
Correct. Yeah. Try ticked or peed
miffed
or miffed. Or,
miffed off?
Otherwise, yeah.
We have miffed off.
I've heard other broadcasters on national broadcasts, I think television and that kind of thing, say flipped off. So,
that's something totally different.
I know, but doesn't that really flip you off? It's like, wait, no, it didn't give me the bird.
It ticked me off, maybe.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So peed off, PO'd, right? You can acronymize. Hey, do you guys know what the acronymicon is? It's the evil book of acronyms. So
Okay.
it's like the Necronomicon, except for, words.
The TEBA, yes.
Yes.
The evil book of acronyms.
Okay.
EBA.
Well, I mean, wouldn't it want to acronym itself? And fun
the
fact,
EBOA.
acronyms are all evil. Every single one of them.
Is evil an acronym?
For some things, yes.
Every village is luxurious?
I'm sure that there's a number of comic book evildoers that use the acronym evil to mean a particular thing.
Hey, speaking of acronyms, we've got one in our lead topic story for today.
I'm a little surprised you guys weren't referring to all those court things last night as like DROs just to mess with people. Like libertarians.
Distributed rights organizations, yes.
Well, all we need is like DROs instead of courts. That'll solve it all.
I mean, it's certainly one potential way.
And that was part of the argument is how useful is it to describe a free market version of this as a court or a court system?
Right. So my experience with normies is vast and uncompromised.
Muggles.
And
call them muggles.
So it's very easy to confuse them by using the statist words to describe something in a non-statist potential thing. Right?
I just like shouting at them that it's not my job to centrally plan liberty.
Well, it's nobody's job to central plan liberty, and I don't mean nobody, the co-host here on Free Talk Live. I mean not any person. Central planning of liberty just shouldn't, period. There shouldn't be a thing. And in fact, if you're out there listening and you believe that government gives you rights. Well, you need to open a book, take a class, look up where do rights come from on your favorite search engine, your favorite distributed search engine. I don't know what I'm saying.
Duck, look it up, homie.
Yeah, there's other ones too. Okay. What's the other one? The Brave.
That's the Brave browser,
right? But doesn't it have its own built-in search? I don't use it, obviously, so that's why I don't.
I mean, my default is
Start
Start
Page. That is my default. Start Page is a decent one. Yep. Usually, if I can't find it on Brave, I'll go to Pre-Search.
Yes, right. Pre-Search is one that I've used.
They do just a completely different way of searching for things, and it's usually pretty good if the other ones aren't getting it for me.
So I mentioned the acronym in our lead story tonight. It's IMF, and while I like to think it stands for insane,
your pronoun, mofo.
Yes, that is true. Yes.
Wow, throwbacks of his own.
Yes, mofo gets a callback. Yes, thank you. Mofo here in the studio.
Yeah.
So anyway, the IMF is involved in this particular story. The headline here from the Free Thought Project is, as inflation reaches record highs globally, that's right, globally. We've talked a whole bunch about the United States government and the Federal Reserve having printed trillions of dollars, somewhere between 25 and 50% of all dollars that exist in the system have been created in the last 2.5 years.
And just a quick reminder, because I always struggle with trillion, especially trillion versus a billion.
Yeah.
But just a quick reminder. So a billion seconds is a week and a half. A million seconds is a week and a half. A billion seconds is 32 years. And a trillion seconds is longer than all of civilization. So that's how many dollars they did several of.
Yes. And so that's just but globally, these central banks, because the Federal Reserve is the United States central bank.
Okay.
And so other countries have their own central banks as well. And they've also been creating a whole bunch of money.
I want to interject here very briefly because we talked a little bit about this on my podcast yesterday.
And what is your podcast called?
The Anarchist Experience.
There you go.
Thank you. But it was about the new socialist president of Chile already running into problems.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a line in the article that said, well, with inflation, Chile's inflation is from sources abroad. It's not their fault.
Right, yeah.
And I was like, how can that not be their fault? Right? We as libertarians or anarchists or whatever, we always define inflation as an increase in the money supply.
Right.
So if Chile is experiencing inflation, right, it's because that government is increasing their own internal money supply.
Right.
It's not it's not a factor that has to do with what the United States is doing.
Right, yeah.
Or any other country.
Yeah.
And to be the translator between libertarian and statist here.
Okay.
So when a statist uses, especially the ones on the news or seeking or having office, when they say inflation, they're talking about price inflation. Whereas, anyone who's familiar with Austrian economics, or as I call it, real economics.
Right, yeah. Logical economics.
The one
they
that makes
realize
sense.
that, even if the price for something stays the same, but it could have been cheaper, that's already a form of inflation. So we talk about monetary inflation.
Okay, very well.
Right, which is what I'm saying, right? And if these other countries wanting to strengthen their economy against the U.S. dollar, wouldn't it behoove them to not inflate at all?
Correct.
The United States rapidly inflates the currency. You can strengthen your local economy by just not inflating it against the U.S. dollar.
Yeah, so one of the things that just happened, it was one bank after another that decided, okay, what are we going to do with our interest rates, right? And one after another is raising their interest rates, except for China, because they want the Chinese yuan to be weak against the dollar so that it's easier for us to purchase their stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
There are some countries that do not have their own currency. They run on other nations' currencies.
Okay.
So in that respect, there are some probably smaller countries that don't have their own currency where they are experiencing the effects of inflation because they run on like the dollar, for example.
Okay.
So,
well, good reason to not do that too then.
Hello. Yes, indeed.
Well,
Stop tying it to the dollar.
And that's why the ones who are switching to cryptocurrency are those countries.
Okay.
And they're about to get offed by the CIA.
So now we've laid the groundwork for the IMF and what banks do and what central banks are and what inflation is. The headline reads, as inflation reaches record highs globally, IMF director admits, we printed too much money.
You don't say.
We've been saying that for, well, I think as long as Free Talk Live's been on the radio.
Well, and again, definitionally, that's the inflation.
Yes.
You printed too much money.
Yes.
That is in no way shocking. That the IMF director would say it is literally unbelievable.
Yeah, they've been saying everything except this. They've been saying, oh, it's transitory, and no, printing money doesn't cause inflation.
And it's Russia's fault.
And it's Putin's fault. Yeah, all of this stuff. So we're going to talk. We'll get into this article. We're going to talk more about this here on Free Talk Live, 603-283-6160.
So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
After a devastating war, the alien visitors were driven back, and their willing human collaborators were left behind to face the music. When Emma Jean Anderson's ex-lover springs her from prison, Nathan Foster and his 14-year-old nephew Ben are tasked with bringing the pair to justice. An easy enough job until they discover something is inside Emma Jean, and the fate of the planet hangs in the balance. The Family Business by Mike Coopery from BaneBooks.com.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount.
Are you tired of governments around the world killing innocent people? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin is money that cannot be inflated or controlled by any state. By continuing to use their money, you're perpetuating the killing. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available to you now. Learn it, use it, spread it.
Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. It's Bitcoin.com.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
Are you tired of your taxes funding endless occupations around the world? Antiwar.com is run by people who understand that wars abroad become wars at home, wars on our freedoms. Antiwar.com is dedicated to bringing you the latest in news, views, interviews, and reviews from the top movers and shakers in the anti-occupation movement. Antiwar.com has it all, from thorough foreign policy analysis to interviews with whistleblowers who used to run the military-industrial complex. Anti-war, pro-free market. That's antiwar.com.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
And we're back.
Yes, we are back. It is
Free Talk Live.
And the telephone number is
603-283-6160.
Very good.
Bam, son.
Nailed it.
A+.
Nailed it. Richie Rich gets a +4 on his hit points because of his ability to recite the phone number here at Free Talk Live.
Don't ask me to do it again.
Okay.
Savant moment right there.
603-283-6160. If you want to join us in the studio tonight, it is myself, the Lord, Dr. Reverend Captain Kickass Buckshot Esquire, if you will. Joining me tonight,
Beakless Mountaineer.
And Richie Rich, if you know what I mean.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying. We haven't really even got into it yet. We spent the whole first segment sort of laying groundwork about inflation and central banking.
We're teasing the headline. That's what we do here.
And the headline, of course, is as inflation reaches record highs globally, which is true, IMF director admits,
whoops,
we printed too much money. Now, we've been telling everybody listening in Radioland here on Free Talk Live for a really long time that when the Federal Reserve prints a bunch of money, right, and printing isn't really actually what they do. They create money out of thin air and add it to the existing money supply. Right. To that extent, the dollar is already digital.
I like what the chairman of the Fed called it. He said, digitally, we print it.
Yes.
Because they were asking him, it's like, well, do you just print money? And he says, well, most of it's done electronically, but digitally, we print it.
So they
imagine that. They just sit at a computer and go like, all right, and more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they literally add some zeros and go, yep, okay, it's been created.
You have just been loaned $10,000.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens when they create this money, they print this money out of thin air, is it makes every dollar that you have in your bank account, in your wallet, tucked inside your jacket pocket that you'll only find next fall when you wash it again, it's going to make every dollar that you have worth less than it's worth now. Now, the dollar itself has been on a steady decline for hundreds of years.
Zoom out on that chart.
Yeah.
Ever since 1913 and the creation of the Federal Reserve, down it goes.
It's like skiing the K-12. It's a downhill slope of treacherous navigation. So at any rate, we've been saying this, that this is going to create inflation like we've never seen before. It's coming. Get ready.
Or you'll see the effects of the inflation.
Yeah.
Because the integrating the money itself is the inflation.
Right.
Like that's it.
And so everybody, as far as the government officials are concerned, all the representatives of the Federal Reserve have all said things that sort of to poo-poo our stance.
Or right? Putin it. It's Putin's fault.
Even Putin poo. Yes. And I like that the first part of his name is Pooh.
Okay.
It makes for crappy jokes, if you know what I mean.
Zing.
So we've been saying that, this is going to happen. Inflation, there's no way it can't happen when you create, a third or more of the money supply in just a couple of years. Yeah, prices are going to go up, right? Everybody's going to see the effects of it. Well, finally, somebody at, of some, government level says what we've been saying.
I still literally don't believe that this occurred.
Well, let's find out.
And I mean, like, it's wild because the official stance of the Federal Reserve is that printing money does not in any way lead to price inflation.
Well, this is worse than the Federal Reserve. This is the International Monetary Fund.
Or the insane...
Yeah, exactly.
Mugger friggers.
This is like the central bank's central bank.
It really is. So this is, there were two different articles on this. I just grabbed the first one. This is from the freethoughtproject.com. Mostly we get lies, spin, and obfuscation from central bankers, politicians, and bureaucrats, but every once in a while, one of these people accidentally wanders into the truth.
Says the quiet part out loud.
If you know what I'm saying.
If you know what I mean.
IMF Director Kristalina Georgieva, if that's how you pronounce it, Georgieva? It's a weird name.
KG.
KG.
Acronym hurt too.
Yes.
Economicon.
IMF Director KG did just that. I don't want to call her KG because now I'm insulting one half of Tenacious D.
Oh, okay.
And so that doesn't seem right.
I thought you were going to go the sports route and go like Kevin Garnett.
Like Kevin Garnett, anything is possible. IMF Director Kristalina Georgieva did just that during a recent panel discussion hosted by CNBC. She conceded that central banks globally, quote, printed too much money and didn't think of unintended consequences, unquote.
No, they thought about it and they denied it. They went, no, that's not going to happen. It was pointed out to them. If you print too much money, you're going to see inflationary effects. And they went, no, we've got this covered. They lied.
What?
They lied.
The Federal Reserve and the government and politicians
all the
and
other
all their cronies
banks.
and all the other bankers. They what? No, they wouldn't lie. Why would they lie, Richie Rich?
Because that's what they do.
Peakless, why would they lie?
They don't. What they say is fundamentally true. And if you think that what they say is not true, then you are clearly a Putin agent. Or whoever it is that we're about to be at war with.
Right, yes.
Yemen. East Asia, Eurasia, I forget which one.
We've always been at war.
I mean,
but whichever one it is, we have always been at war with.
So I don't know if these are quotes, but these are italicized mini paragraphs, if you will. One says, I think we're not paying sufficient attention to the law of unintended consequences. We take decisions with an objective in mind and rarely think through what may happen that is not our objective. And then we wrestle with the impact of it. I believe these are quotes from this Kristalina Georgieva person. The second one reads, to take any decision that is a massive decision, like the decision that we need to spend to support the economy, at that time, we did recognize that maybe too much money in circulation and too few goods, but didn't really quite think through the consequences in a way that upfront would have informed better what we do.
I'm not the brightest man in this room, and yet I knew that from the beginning. They shut down production for all of COVID and handed out checks.
Yeah.
I went, duh, you're going to have all that money and no one's producing anything. This is not going to end well.
Right.
You need production to keep up with it.
And then continued and did it repeatedly. There were like 3 of these, I'm going to call them money injections into the system that were all in like 10, 20, $30 billion range, or trillion even, right? The number is so high that like Snoop Dogg can't even comprehend how high it is, right?
Yeah, and now he's raising the interest rates by like 0.25 percentage point, and people are freaking out. And here in like 2 days, we're going to find out, is it 0.25 percentage point or 0.5 percentage point? And it's like, dude, you needed to raise this back then in 2020 when you handed out all this money.
And they're not going to. They can't. If they raise it too high, it's going to tank the entire
consumer
economy.
Which is going to happen.
Are we already not on track
and
for that? I mean,
that's when the money printers go back on.
Money printer go.
Well, at the moment they've stopped accelerating the money printer.
For now. They're going to read this article and they're still not going to do what's right.
603-283-6160. Do you think they printed too much money? Give us a call. Let us know. More Free Talk Live is coming up.
Free Talk Live's video archives have been on LBRY for years. LBRY is an uncensorable, decentralized, blockchain-based media sharing protocol, and we're big fans of it here on Free Talk Live. In 2020, LBRY launched Odyssey, a video sharing website to compete with YouTube, and it's really taking off, now with over 1 million channels, many of whom are disaffected YouTube creators. During YouTube's crackdown for not towing the government line on COVID, the Free Talk Live YouTube channel started receiving strikes and could be completely taken down at any moment. Thankfully, Odyssey started offering live streaming, so we're now streaming live every night and posting our video archives permanently to Odyssey. You can watch live or anytime on our Odyssey channel by visiting video.freetalklive.com. If you want to go all in, download the desktop app at lbry.com, and then every video archive you watch, you'll help seed and keep it online forever. At minimum, we ask you visit video.freetalklive.com and follow us on Odyssey today. video.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, D.C., I'm Benji Haya with this roundup of what's been making headlines this past week. Ukrainian officials say Russian strikes have hit Kiev as the United Nations Secretary-General visited the Ukrainian capital. From Riga in Latvia, William Denzilo reports.
Ukraine's Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba says the Russian cruise missile strike was a heinous act of barbarism that demonstrates Russia's attitude to Ukraine, Europe and the world. Thursday evening's attack came as UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres was in Kiev for talks with President Volodymyr Zelensky. The Ukrainian president said the cruise missile attack was an effort to humiliate the UN and all it represents, and that a strong response is required. Russia's Ministry of Defense confirmed the strikes destroyed a rocket and space industry facility. On his trip to Ukraine, which came days after a visit to Moscow, Guterres said intense discussions were underway to evacuate civilians from a besieged steelworks in Mariupol.
US President Joe Biden is asking Congress to approve $33 billion in new funding of security, economic and humanitarian assistance for Ukraine, which he says is necessary to help its forces defeat Russian attacks. It's in addition to the $13.6 billion already approved in March. That's as figures show the US economy shrank 1.4% in the first quarter of 2022, raising concerns of a recession. Elsewhere, the European Union's announced it'll begin winding back several COVID-19 measures. From Brussels, Trent Murray reports.
Between 60 and 80% of the EU population is estimated to have been infected with COVID-19, according to new estimates from the European Commission. The data comes as the bloc prepares to enter what it describes as a post-emergency phase of the pandemic. With a recent drop in infections and deaths linked to coronavirus, the EU also says it will start moving away from mass testing and the reporting of cases. But they've also warned that fresh surges and mutations in the future are likely, and have called on member states to have plans in place ready to respond.
And Tesla chief executive Elon Musk has sold billions of dollars in stock in his electric vehicle-making company after agreeing to buy Twitter. Caroline Malone has more details.
From Tuesday to Thursday, Elon Musk sold around $8.5 billion worth of Tesla stock, according to regulatory findings. That's after Twitter announced on Monday that they'd accepted an offer of $44 billion from Musk to buy the company. The Bloomberg Billionaires Index shows he's the world's richest man with a net worth of $252 billion. But much of it is tied up in his companies Tesla and SpaceX. Musk has to come up with $21 billion in cash to finance the Twitter deal.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
And we're back.
Yes, we are. We're also front and side.
Front, back, side to side.
This is Free Talk Live, 603-283-6160. If you'd like to join us, we're talking about this article from the Free Thought Project. The IMF director says, we printed too much money. Like, no S, Sherlock. What tipped you off, Einstein? What was your first clue? Like,
they're finally seeing the effects of their handiwork.
So in the studio tonight, it's myself, the captain,
Beakless Mountaineer,
and Richie Rich.
Before we get back into this story, the whole ad on the end of my long intro, my name's Buckshot Esquire, if you will. That actually, I stole that. I plagiarized, if you will, if you know what I'm saying, from a former bandmate of mine whose stage name was Eugenius, the human pump handle slamming machine, Buckshot Esquire, if you will.
Nice.
So I just took the tail end of that and added it to mine because I thought, sure, why not? I could use a Buckshot Esquire, if you will. Right? And if you will isn't really like an official like
you
title.
You don't have to purchase
a
square foot of land for that title.
No, you just say it and it's official.
Although Esquire is actually an official title that means you're a lawyer.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Dun, dun, dun.
Better go buy the $20 law degree.
Suddenly goes, what is the probability of my getting sued over using Esquire?
Does that mean he can now give out legal advice?
No, no. Actually, I can use it.
You can, but I really would recommend against it.
Actually, I can use it without fear because the defense, of course, is fair use, right? As a comedian, as a parody artist, everything that I do, if it could be conceived that it violates copyright, can be defended in court under fair use, because fair use allows for satire, first and foremost, comedy, education, a whole bunch of other stuff. I don't remember the whole list, but the ones I'm concerned with, of course, is satire, comedy, education. Those purposes will generally allow you to use. This is why your local television station can replay like the highlights of the NFL football game without getting sued, because fair use. They get to report on it. So like news is one of the exceptions for fair use as well.
Now the state's going to require a license to be a parody artist. That's all you're.
I mean, so they already kind of do. What's really disturbing to me about being a parody artist, and if any of you out there have listened to my parodies over at LordKickass.com, you might notice that my work doesn't appear in the usual places. You're not going to find it on Spotify. You're not going to find it on iTunes. There's a reason for that, and that's because it is insanely difficult to get, even in this day, digital distribution for parody music. The distributors themselves, I could write a brand new song, get it distributed overnight. Right, I could have a new song on iTunes, like, in 2 days or whatever it is. But a parody song, it doesn't qualify as a cover, so you can't just like license it as a cover and then they get a cut and you get a cut and everybody's happy. It doesn't work like that. The only way it can be distributed is through a distributor that's willing to take the risk of being sued. And generally speaking, you win the fair use defense in court, but you have to use it
you have to go to court.
Yeah, the company has to first get sued, and then you have to go to court, and then you have to invoke the defense for it to be successful. You can't just up front go, hey, this is a parody for fair use. And so a couple of my parodies have had videos made and put on YouTube and that kind of thing. And so the first thing you see when you click play on my videos is section blah, 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 title blah, blah, blah of the U.S. Code blah, blah, blah. This is a parody under fair use or whatever, right?
Nice.
Some quote that I put in there just to keep people from commenting on, you stole the... There's so many people that don't know. Like that you can make fun of a song and publish it and it's just fine. And that, Bob Seger's not going to sue you. Right, or
hopefully,
generally speaking, right. And if they do, then you're just gonna be like, look, I'm not even making any money on this thing, and like, also, I'm a comedian, so here, fair use, bro. Anyway, tangent on fair use stuff.
You don't say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just kind of wish we had a civilization where we let people say things.
Oh yeah, wouldn't that be nice?
Wouldn't that be wild?
Yeah. So at any rate, we've been talking about this article from the Free Thought Project, talking about the IMF director admitting that they printed too much money. How this economic brain trust missed... that's a poorly worded sentence. How this economic brain trust failed to consider that injecting trillions into the economy would cause prices to rise is a bit of a head-scratcher.
Well, Again, like, this is actually what their models tell them. Like, they follow Keynesianism and most especially super Keynesianism, which is modern monetary theory. And they're like, oh, it's modern. That means it's better than all this stuff you know. And if you don't think what modern monetary says, then you're an idiot. And one of the things that it says is that printing a bunch of money doesn't cause prices to go up.
Yeah. The author of this says, "This is Economics 101. Expanding the money supply pushes prices higher than they otherwise would be. I knew this would happen. Peter Schiff knew this would happen. Heck, you probably knew this would happen. But the people charged with running the global economy didn't."
So you don't get Keynesianism in Econ 101. That's like 300 level courses right there. Before they change it up on you, go like, well, it's really more like this. All that stuff you learned in first year econ, throw it out the window.
Well, and here's the thing. If you look at the data, they've actually tested people's economic knowledge before and after taking college courses on economics, and they actually know less after they're done with these courses than before they take them.
The effects of public schools.
No, well, I mean, this is college level.
Oh, even that. Well, and you're paying for the privilege of learning less.
Yep.
Don't worry, the loans will be forgiven. And by forgiven, I mean redistributed to all the taxpayers.
Well, you know, the loans will be forgiven in the sense that we're going to print so much money that the $50,000 you just spent will just be like 2 hours worth of work.
Well, not if wages don't increase, which they haven't.
They have.
No, they haven't.
Just not nearly as much as prices.
If let's just go by the official numbers. If inflation is around 8%.
8.5.
Right. Real wages have not gone up, but the fight for 15 people are sort of getting their way, at least around here.
Well,
yeah, well, and that's the thing. Real wages have been flat. Like, actual wage type wages have been flat since the 70s.
I know a person who was a stay-at-home mom.
Okay.
And that all ended, and so they had to go get a job. And they're very excited to be making $16 an hour at an entry-level position.
That's what I'm saying.
But, like, little do they know that, like, that's the equivalent to, like, $8 an hour, 10 years ago.
Right. So the fight for 15 people got their way because a lot of entry-level positions have been pushed up into that range. But because of these inflationary policies, it wipes it all out. It doesn't even matter.
I remember in the late 80s, some people that I knew were having a discussion, an argument, if you will. They were trying to one up each other. A couple of dudes, trying to, I did better than you. I did better than you. And one guy was talking about. He's like, oh yeah, well, I went to the ITT tech school for 1 year and I got out and I'm already making $25K. And the other guy went, well, I didn't go to school at all, and I'm making $24K, so there, right? And this was their argument. But this, and like now you're like, really, you're going to argue about that much money? Like this, come on.
Well, and the thing that actually pushes wages up is that a whole bunch of people have just said, yeah, I'm not going to do these wage jobs. Like, as far as a good chunk of the population, they found out, hey, if I just flash my body on the internet, I can get money at my own schedule. And all sorts
you have
of
to have the body for it.
Yep. That's so there's that. There's a whole lot of people that just stayed on welfare because you had to register for welfare in order to survive the pandemic. So a bunch of people went, oh, that's not hard. What's on your paperwork? Oh, yeah, I can qualify for this, and this. So they're not going back to work.
Yeah,
like that's what pushed up real the minimum wage, if you will.
I'm generally in support of the anti-work movement because of these inflationary policies.
Yeah.
603-283-6160 is the number. What do you think about inflation? Is it affecting you? Are you seeing prices rise? Have you been paid more by your employer? Did you seek other employment because you could get more wages? Let us know. More Free Talk Live coming up.
Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 27th through July 3rd for the 6th annual Fork Fest at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Fork Fest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which sold out for the first time in 2021. Fork Fest takes place the week after Pork Fest, but Fork Fest is decentralized, which means that there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you have to do to join the fun is reserve your camping site, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 27th through July 3rd. There's no better place to celebrate Independence Day than around other freedom-loving activists in the Shire. You can find out more at the unofficial website, forkfest.party. You can also connect with other attendees on the Forkfest Telegram and Matrix chat rooms, as well as the Forkfest forum. You can find links to those at forkfest.party. We hope to see you there. Forkfest.party.
I'm a little obsessed with My Magic Mud. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, the founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I didn't even know my teeth were coffee stained. A week's worth of use convinced me, and now I use it every 3 or 4 days. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, and I think it cleans better, too. My Magic Mud's available at most local health food stores, Sprouts, Natural Grocers, CVS, Walmart's Natural Beauty Aisle, but I can get it for you for 20% off with coupon code FTL20 at mymagicmud.com. FTL20 mymagicmud.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
Don't worry about things you can't control. Isn't that what they always say? But it's about impossible to avoid worrying about what's going on these days. The government has used the war on guns, the war on drugs, and the war on terrorism to tear our Bill of Rights to shreds. But you can fight back. The 10th Amendment Center has proven it, racking up major victories. For example, when the U.S. government claimed authority in the NDAA to have the military kidnap and detain Americans without trial, the nullifiers got a law passed in California, declaring the state's refusal to ever participate in any such thing. Their latest project is offnow.org, nullifying the National Security Agency. They've already gotten model legislation introduced in California, Arizona, Oklahoma, Missouri, and Kansas, meant to limit the power of the NSA to spy on Americans in those states. We'd be fools to wait around for the U.S. Congress or courts to roll back Big Brother. Our best chance is nullification and interposition on the state level. Go to offnow.org, print out that model legislation, and get to work nullifying the NSA. The hero Edward Snowden has risked everything to give us this chance. Let's take it. Offnow.org.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
There are basically 2 types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
And we're back.
Yes, we are back. It is Free Talk Live. The live call-in radio station. Radio station. We're a station now, guys. I just declared it. No, we're a radio program.
The dream has come true.
We're not a station. If you call the station to try to get back at us, it will not work.
We're a radio program carried by radio stations where you could call in and talk about whatever's on your mind. 603-283-6160 is the telephone number. In the studio tonight, it's myself, the captain.
Peakless Mountaineer.
And Richie Rich.
Let's go to your calls and thoughts. We've got Joe calling from New Jersey. Joe, you're on Free Talk Live.
Gentlemen, good evening. How are you today? Okay? Everything going all right?
We are here. We're alive. What's on your mind?
I'm a little pissed off at the moment.
Well, I appreciate giving me the time here. I just wanted to give you a call. I'm listening to what you guys are saying, and I really think that this is really the demise of where we're going, the dollar, as far as they're going to try to raise the interest rates probably as much as they can over the next few months, and then we'll go into the recession, and then they'll start to cut the rates again. And we'll start looking at back to zero and possibly more stimmies going out next year.
Stimmy.
Great.
So,
hey, Joe, I read something today, and I haven't even talked to these guys in the studio about it. I read something today that said the housing market during the Great Depression, like the difference between wages and affordability was measured at something like 33%, right? So that was sort of the difference between like whatever entry-level wages were and the ability to buy a house. And that today, it's even worse. Like the difference between entry-level wages and the ability to buy a house is even worse than it was in the Depression. Have you heard anything about that?
Yeah. I also heard that the market, really, the first 4 months of this year can be compared to the beginning of 1939, which was really the second leg of the Depression. So we're almost replicating that decade in a lot of ways.
That was coming.
Yeah, one of the news that came out was that we have already had an economic contraction in just the first quarter of this year, and like we ain't seen nothing yet. Like all of this, all of the difficulty getting fertilizers and oil and all of that. Like we're going to see a huge crunch when it comes to harvest time this year.
Most folks are going to be spending money for heating and food, energy. So that's where a lot of the income is going to be going. And stocks like Amazon are going to start seeing hits because they're just not going to be doing the extraneous purchases.
Oh, yeah. Bezos lost like $13 billion in a couple of hours the other day.
But think about this. Now, if we go back into a mode where we're down to zero rates, and of course, then they're doing the stimulus checks again. Now we're monetizing this balance sheet. The Fed's at what, $9 trillion? I think they knocked off $17 billion last week. Big deal. And
I was nowhere that they had allowed that to go down at all. I thought it was just sort of like staying stable.
Well, they're just not in there purchasing as many treasuries as they were. So, the rates were up a little on the auctions on Treasury Direct, but not much.
And that's one of the biggest stories out right now is the whole Treasury desire. Because like now that the U.S. has said Russia is not allowed to have all of this money that was in American banks, none of the other countries are quite as happy about buying our treasuries because they're like, oh, you mean if I buy your treasuries, you might just decide you don't like what I'm doing? Mm-hmm. Which, for France, that's not a big issue, but it sure is for like, Pakistan or Iran. They're like, ooh, well, what's it going to take for you to decide I don't have this money?
Right.
Invading another country.
Yeah. Well, and without someone to buy these treasuries, they can't print the money, so they buy them themselves, and that's one of the things that they're keeping the money printer at a steady hum by not buying more treasuries.
Okay.
Yeah, monetizing the interest, and you can possibly look at down the pike. Of course, we're the world reserve currency, but down the pike, you could be looking at some type of, modified hyperinflation.
Yep.
Which is really where I wanted to take you guys a little bit into this area too, where I think this kind of plays into this digital currency. I mean, this might be the out. We're running the credit card up, paying off student loans, basically doing whatever we can. But at some point, they're going to realize that we go to the digital currency as a formal devaluation, and everything gets reset at that time. Maybe the IMF comes in with their special drawing rights and backs the currencies. Maybe that's the plan, to have a basket of currencies around the world, with the IMF being the World Bank backing all the central banks. So just kick it up a level.
I might agree with you in that assessment if it weren't for cryptocurrency's existence already. There's no way that banks can create a digital currency that is better or more effective than even the stable coins that already exist. The ability to convert, say Bitcoin or Monero or any of the other cryptocurrencies into something that is pegged to the U.S. dollar already exists and has existed for quite some time. For governments and banks to catch up to that curve, I think they'd lose that race.
I don't even know if they need it. Right? Just think about transactions that most people have on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Most of it is not physical paper Federal Reserve notes handed to and fro.
Yeah, the dollar is largely digital
It's
already.
largely digital already. So, in early days, talking about Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, people go, well, what happens if the internet goes down and never comes back?
You have a whole different set of problems.
Well, but to what I told them is like, how much cash do you have in your pocket? Because if that happens, your bank account is wiped out too.
Oh, yeah.
Right? There's no record of that exists, in paper form anywhere.
Yeah. Although there is some good news on that front. I recently had an article that I had for show prep. I don't know where it is right now.
It's on the desk somewhere.
But it's not the first time. But Doge, the cryptocurrency, was successfully transmitted over the radio.
Okay.
Nice.
Right, using radio waves. Now you still need to have like a computer.
Sure.
To fire it up and look at it, but it was transmitted successfully. So.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that people don't realize about this is they're like, oh well, it's internet money, and it's like, well, no, the internet is something that makes it a lot more effective.
Yes,
but we could be doing this with dice and pigeons. It just would take a real long time.
Well, and what I'm saying is your dollars, your Federal Reserve notes, is already internet money too. Right.
Hey, Joe, thanks for the call. We appreciate it.
It's a bank an ACH transfer from here to there, a credit card transfer where they increment your they debit yours and they credit the other side, and it's all in the ether already.
Yeah, the difference between a central bank government digital currency and a cryptocurrency is that the central banks and the governments can't counterfeit cryptocurrency.
Right.
Yep.
That is the difference. And so, people are like, well, what difference is cryptocurrency going to make because there's a blah, blah, blah on the digital dollar? And that's the difference. The difference is the governments can't counterfeit it. They can't print it out of thin air, deflating your purchasing power, making whatever units of currency you choose to transact in worth less than they were. The fact is that if you were born 40 years ago and you had $10,000 in cash and you thought, I'm going to do what grandma did and I'm going to keep that $10,000 in cash under my mattress. Don't ever do this, by the way.
In a jar buried in the backyard under the oak tree.
Right? The fact of the matter is that $10,000, whenever you buried it in the backyard or stuck it under the mattress, is worth roughly minus 9 times what it was then. You could have almost bought a house for $10,000 40 years ago, whereas you can't even buy a new car for $10,000 today.
And that's the other problem with that idea is it incentivizes people now to spend the money quicker because it's going to be worth less in the future.
Right.
The incentive to save is gone and getting worse the more they inflate the currency.
Well, and that's why these interest rates matter, is because the only way that you can actually save faster than the inflation is going is by having these interest rates, getting more out of it than you were putting into it.
Well, and you have to take more risks by entering into cryptocurrency markets or stock markets,
right? Because
it's the only thing that you may get a better return than leaving it in a bank where you're going to lose money on an interest rate lower than inflation.
Mm-hmm. And just a quick note, I think that October, there's going to be some major move in the direction of central bank digital currencies. It's when everyone's supposed to get back to Biden on the whole cryptocurrency problem, and it's right before the election. So I think we're going to see something interesting then.
603-283-6160. Coming up in hour number 2, we're going to get into a potential bill that will double your income tax if you're not vaccinated.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, D.C., I'm Benji Haya with this roundup of what's been making headlines this past week. Ukrainian officials say Russian strikes have hit Kiev as the United Nations Secretary-General visited the Ukrainian capital. From Riga in Latvia, William Denzilo reports.
Ukraine's Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba says the Russian cruise missile strike was a heinous act of barbarism that demonstrates Russia's attitude to Ukraine, Europe and the world. Thursday evening's attack came as UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres was in Kiev for talks with President Volodymyr Zelensky. The Ukrainian president said the cruise missile attack was an effort to humiliate the UN and all it represents, and that a strong response is required. Russia's Ministry of Defense confirmed the strikes destroyed a rocket and space industry facility. On his trip to Ukraine, which came days after a visit to Moscow, Guterres said intense discussions were underway to evacuate civilians from a besieged steelworks in Mariupol.
US President Joe Biden is asking Congress to approve $33 billion in new funding of security, economic and humanitarian assistance for Ukraine, which he says is necessary to help its forces defeat Russian attacks. It's in addition to the $13.6 billion already approved in March. That's as figures show the US economy shrank 1.4% in the first quarter of 2022, raising concerns of a recession. Elsewhere, the European Union's announced it'll begin winding back several COVID-19 measures. From Brussels, Trent Murray reports.
Between 60 and 80% of the EU population is estimated to have been infected with COVID-19, according to new estimates from the European Commission. The data comes as the bloc prepares to enter what it describes as a post-emergency phase of the pandemic. With a recent drop in infections and deaths linked to coronavirus, the EU also says it will start moving away from mass testing and the reporting of cases. But they've also warned that fresh surges and mutations in the future are likely and have called on member states to have plans in place ready to respond.
And Tesla chief executive Elon Musk has sold billions of dollars in stock in his electric vehicle making company after agreeing to buy Twitter. Caroline Malone has more details.
From Tuesday to Thursday, Elon Musk sold around $8.5 billion worth of Tesla stock, according to regulatory findings. That's after Twitter announced on Monday that they'd accepted an offer of $44 billion from Musk to buy the company. The Bloomberg Billionaires Index shows he's the world's richest man with a net worth of $252 billion. But much of it is tied up in his companies Tesla and SpaceX. Musk has to come up with $21 billion in cash to finance the Twitter deal.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. As we head into the third month of Russia's war on Ukraine, there's every indication that it is going to become a long, grinding conflict. But even if it is contained to Ukraine itself and does not drag NATO into direct conflict with Moscow, the Putin regime is now referring to the conflict as a proxy war between Russia and the United States. That was the phrase that Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov used earlier this week, and Foreign Affairs analyst Tim Marshall thinks that on this occasion, Vladimir Putin's top foreign affairs advisor is right.
He's not talking about a nuclear war. He's warning that you can't rule that out. It's because they're rattled. They saw the two American secretaries of state, Defense and the State Department, show up in Kyiv over the weekend and openly say what they're going to be giving the Ukrainians. They even listed the weapons. The Americans, I think, have made the calculation that they can shift this crisis from what was simply trying to manage it, damage limitation on the Ukrainian side, into a strategic opportunity to really inflict damage on the Russians themselves. So it is a proxy war, I'm afraid.
Russia's Ministry of Education says children will be taught about the justification for the war when they return to Russia's classrooms for a new academic year in September, suggesting the Kremlin thinks the conflict will still be underway then. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
A reminder again of this week's top stories. Ukrainian officials say Russian strikes have hit Kiev as the United Nations Secretary-General visited the Ukrainian capital. US President Joe Biden is asking Congress to approve $33 billion in new aid for Ukraine, as figures show the US economy shrank 1.4% in the first quarter. And the European Union's announced it'll begin winding back several COVID-19 measures, including mass testing and case reporting. That's the latest feature story news. I'm Benji Haya in Washington.
This is the Onion Week in Review. A month after the death of leader Kim Jong-il, North Korea's 24.5 million citizens have returned to their regular daily routines this week, holding a festive, synchronized disco jump rope gala in Pyongyang's main public square. Life in the hermetic communist nation is reportedly beginning to normalize following the protracted mourning period, with citizens once again donning their brightly colored uniforms and performing intricate gymnastics routines in perfect unison.
It is an inspiring sight to see so many loyal citizens find the strength to unfurl their long silken streamers and do dozens of tandem backflips set to dance music.
Observers reported that new North Korean leader Kim Jong-un nodded once in approval of the disco jump rope gala, signaling an official transfer of power.
A recent study from the Centers for Disease Control finds that over 100 million children are being exposed to harmful levels of stupidity in their own homes. Hear the debate about secondhand ignorance on the next In the Know.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
And we're back.
Yes, we are back. Welcome back. Let's get back to the show. The show will be starting again now. It's hour number 2 of Free Talk Live. The telephone number, if you'd like to pipe in, join us in the conversation, is 603-283-6160. Again, 603-283-6160. In the studio tonight, it's myself, the Lord Reverend Captain Kickass,
Bigless Mountaineer,
and Richie Rich.
During the last segment, we started talking, or we at least mentioned cryptocurrency, and I want to remind you that Bitcoin.com is the best source for learning about cryptocurrency. You can go there now and click on Get Started at the top of the page. Once you do that, you'll find all sorts of valuable information neatly organized to suit your needs. There's no longer any excuse to ignore this very important and world-changing information. If you're already knowledgeable about crypto, you can check out news.bitcoin.com to keep track of all the latest headlines and news that's relevant to you. Bitcoin.com is your source for everything crypto, like getting a wallet, mining, trading, and all the latest cryptocurrency news on a very slick and very easy-to-use website. Please visit bitcoin.com. All right. So we're going to move from sort of economics talk and talk of the IMF director mentioning we printed too much money, or admitting finally after...
Just before we do that, I just want to briefly mention that on the 3rd, whatever the heck the Federal Reserve says is going to cause possibly nothing at all, or possibly like a huge swing in the stock prices. So just a heads up for everyone.
You're talking like the 3rd, like 2 days from now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
May the 3rd?
May the 3rd be with you.
Either it will be what the market expects to happen, in which case nothing will happen, or it will be less than they expect, in which case there'll be a huge boom in stocks, or it'll be more than they expect, in which case there'll be a huge bust in stocks.
Is it worth mentioning May Day today, since it is?
Mayday, Mayday!
I've never understood May Day.
Today is
International
the 1st of
Workers'
May.
Day, also known as Labor Day in some countries, and often referred to as May Day, is a celebration of laborers and working classes that is promoted by the international labor movement and occurs every year on May Day, 1st of May. Today.
Don't we already have Labor Day? Why are we celebrating international holidays? This is America.
Well,
I
didn't say we were celebrating. I just said we were mentioning.
Oh, okay.
It says, while it may belong to a tradition of spring festivals, the date was chosen in 1889 for political reasons by the Marxist International Social Congress.
Well, then let's not celebrate Marxism.
Which met in Paris and established the Second International as a successor to the... Anyway, it's a day when workers like to do things like strike, that kind of thing. We were talking off air during the
proletariat will rise up against the bourgeoisie,
right? Yeah,
and seize the means of production.
We must throw our bodies on the levers and all that kind of thing. So anyway, if you celebrate May Day in any way, shape, or form, happy May Day.
All right.
Well, and I do want to say that I think that one of the things happening right now is we are fundamentally shifting the way in which business is done. So like the coming into existence of decentralized autonomous organizations, I think that it's one of those technologies that will completely replace corporations as we know them.
Let's hope so.
Yeah, because I mean, right now we have this sort of like Roman Empire model of business where like there's this very structured, rigid hierarchy, and those tend to be very, very slow to move, slow to change, and people are very dissatisfied as employees because they don't, if you want maternity leave, then you can't get it. Whereas with a decentralized autonomous organization, if you want to work less, okay.
Yeah.
You want to work more? Okay, you'll get more.
I believe Ian had mentioned that Eric Voorhees, the founder of Shapeshift, that also absorbed the company KeepKey, that's a hardware crypto wallet company, that they've turned their organization into a DAO.
Right.
And so... that results in some really good things for the people, and that's they can set their own hours for, depending, right? Like if you're doing customer service work, generally you have to, have some sort of a set schedule kind of a thing. But for everybody else, it creates all sorts of cool things. Like you can just like leave for a while and then come back if you want to, or not, or what, there's all sorts of cool things that can result from you being considered a part of the DAO, not necessarily as an employee, but like in that type of a role, in an employee type of a role.
So I'm already on record as saying even when we abolish corporations as a government construct, there will still find a way to organize like a corporate structure in that hierarchical sense.
There will be some, I'm sure.
There will be some. And I don't think we're going to get rid of that.
I mean, like we were talking during the break about like being pro-union versus being in favor of what they've become under the government structure.
Right.
And the same thing with like, there's absolutely going to be companies in a free world. There's just not going to be corporations.
Right. So just think, I always come back to the Sanford and Son reference, right? You guys know what I'm talking about?
I'm familiar with it. I don't know the
sitcom from the 70s or whatever, where a guy, Sanford and his son, they own a junkyard. It's called Sanford and Son, the junkyard. It's their business. Thank you. That's how they make their money. And this used to be very common. It used to be that somebody would create some sort of a business, and it would be what's commonly known as a sole proprietorship, right? Sure. Where it's, Richie Rich's, drug emporium or whatever, right? And so, and then you had some kids or whatever, and your kids would grow up, and then you would just leave the business to your kids if they wanted it, or somebody else or whatever. But it was always, there was never any sort of corporate structure to it. It was always sort of a sole proprietor or a family business, that sort of thing. And it was based on your reputation.
Got it.
As a person, not as whatever legal protections you could buy, particularly from the government or from insurance companies and that kind of a thing.
But as far as structure is concerned, I don't think Sanford and Son could manage an international airport.
No, but they could certainly become Sanford and Son national. They could make franchises, right?
Sure.
Oh, this junkyard over in Wenatchee, Washington, it looks like it's having a hard time. Why don't we give them some money? We'll institute our business practices and lend them our reputation and make them a franchise of Sanford and Son. And so now that carries, and so you could see them expanding and becoming larger than they are.
But then the proletariat will look at Sanford and Son and say, "Look at that bourgeoisie rent-seeking." Where they're getting paid just for the name on the marquee? They get a cut just because their name is on, just because that junkyard is. What are they doing to make that junkyard any money?
Well, but Mr. Sanford, of course, would be the ultimate one who suffers if it goes wrong.
Well, and that's the thing. So this is a terribly important thing that people on the left almost never notice, is that risk is valuable. Right. What they're doing is they're taking the risk because that's their name. That name will always be associated with their physical bodies.
And business people, prior to the largesse of corporatizing all businesses, business people used to be less apt to take risks because they knew they would risk their livelihood, their family's livelihood, any other sort of thing that they've lent their reputation to. They'd be risking all of that, so they were less likely to take major risks and do all of the things that these corporations do now because they enjoy this government protection of a corporation.
And one other quick thing regarding the DAOs or the autonomous organizations.
Yeah.
Again, not necessarily against it, but it's not conceptually new, because there used to be a thing called results only work environment, right?
Row.
We don't care
Yep.
right? We don't care where you work from.
Yep.
We don't care how long you work. We don't care what you're doing.
Yep.
Like, your job is to get this done.
Right.
And as long as you get that done,
that was also known
paid.
as piecework back in the day.
Could
right?
be.
We'll pay you by the task, right?
Sure.
We need you to complete 500 of the same task, right, for 500 different people, for example, and we'll pay you $100 for each thing that you get done. They need to be done by this time, but between now and then, you get to decide when to do them and how many to do in a day, what hours you want to work during that day to get them done. As long as you get them done, we don't care.
Well, that's basically a gig, right?
Yes.
Well, and a lot of you said we used to have. No, we still have a lot of that. I mean, like, if you're a computer programmer, that's pretty much how you do that. Yeah. And it's those kind of jobs that are what have enabled us to do this, like, not going to work anymore movement or whatever you're calling it.
Right. But what I'm saying is the DAO isn't necessarily a new concept, just a new implementation of an old idea.
Agreed. 603-283-6160. Coming up, will you have to pay double your income tax if you're not vaccinated? More Free Talk Live is next.
So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
When a lunar observatory detects a radio broadcast originating from Proxima Centauri, the nations of Earth discover their first contact with an alien race may also be their last. With the Proximans facing an extinction-level disaster, Earth must choose between sending a ship on a multi-year journey or allowing nature to take its course. Saving Proxima, a hard science fiction thriller by Travis S. Taylor and Les Johnson from BaneBooks.com.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com.
Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it. And once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world. So I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here. And I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
How many lawyers does it take to change a light bulb? None. They'd rather keep their clients in the dark. There are too many lawyer jokes to count. However, there are some lawyers with more noble intentions. At the Institute for Justice, we bring the light to our clients. We are a non-profit public interest law firm with clear values and principles. At IJ, we fight for those whose most basic rights are denied by the government. Visit our website today at ij.org.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
And we're back.
Very good. Well done. Well said. Couldn't have done it better myself. This is Free Talk Live. It's the Sunday night edition. In the studio tonight, it's myself, the captain.
Beagles Mountaineer.
And Richie Rich.
The telephone number here in the studio is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160 if you'd like to join us. We've been talking about economics, the economy, printing of money. The IMF director has admitted that we printed too much money, which is completely true. We've briefly mentioned May Day because it's the May 1st today. I
want to be the IMF director now.
I mentioned
that's all it takes.
I mentioned May Day not necessarily because I think it's a thing that should be, but because I did an Easter Sunday show and I didn't even mention Easter, and I feel like I should have.
Happy Easter, everyone!
And so it's a little late now, but sure, and to get it out of the way, Happy Mother's Day, whenever that is. Right.
It's
Just
never
say you're one of those
time.
religious traditions that counts it differently. It's still Easter.
It's never an inappropriate time to celebrate the resurrection of Christ.
I had and have
That's a good point.
Many things to say about Easter, but the one thing that I would have said had I realized it was Easter Sunday on the day
Who's got the eggs?
No, I would have said, as I like to do on Christmas, I would have said, hey, if you're listening and you are a child, the Easter Bunny is not real. It's your parents. It's fake. They're lying to you. And so that's,
On what day would you mention the Tooth Fairy? Because there's no Tooth Fairy Day.
I mean, any day is really a good day to mention the Tooth Fairy. Is also fake. It's a lie. It's your parents. It doesn't exist. Yeah. Anyway, let's go to your calls and thoughts. Let's go to Sarah in New Mexico. Sarah, you're on Free Talk Live.
Do you believe in the Tooth Fairy?
Oh, happy Mother's Day, by the way.
Thanks.
I'm gonna.
To the three gentlemen in the studio.
Wait, in my case, it would be Happy Mofo's Day. So.
Well, she's going to get a bunch of presidents from my network company. I get my shipment sent straight to her,
Okay.
So she likes body washes, so she's going to get a bunch of those. So anyways, but I wanted to mention about the May Day.
Oh, okay.
So this is the worldwide communist holiday, you know that, right? Proletariat. You guys are talking about the word proletariat and bourgeoisie,
I mean,
right?
Don't communists not believe in holidays?
Because you don't get a day off when you work in the fields.
Well, this is a big celebration. So, did this holiday start in Chicago? I thought they had a big revolt. It started in America or something. Is that what happened? And then like 5 people got killed, hung, or what? I don't know what.
Okay, so this is from Wikipedia. May Day is a European festival of ancient origins marking the beginning of summer, usually celebrated on May 1st, around halfway between the spring equinox and summer solstice. That's the origins of it. As far as the communist holiday that you're speaking of, we had mentioned that being International Workers' Day, also known as Labor Day, spelled with the useless U in it, L-A-B-O-U-R Day.
The proper spelling.
Yes. And I'm not familiar sort of with the history of Labor Day. There have been many, sort of protests, strikes, and that type of a thing by workers that have occurred on May Day. And so that's probably what you are referring to.
It's symbolic.
Yes.
Right. And then I can faintly remember, I was told that it was a big protest that was in America. And then I think 5 people, they winded up like killing a couple of police officers or injuring them. And then 5 people were picked out and they were hung. And then this holiday somehow got mixed up with a May Day, and it's celebrated all over the world. And especially in France, that's where they had the first communist revolution. France is very much socialist communist country. And Macron got elected, and that explains for their health care. They get that free health care, and it's pretty much socialist country. And so I was told that Italy has turned left and turned towards communism that way, socialism. So,
I mean, to the extent that socialism, has permeated, everything. I mean, the United States is far more socialist, far more communist than the USSR was in the mid-'80s during the height of the Cold War. Those people running the USSR at that point, if they could see what the United States has become today and all of the tracking and the surveillance and the socialized everything,
well, they'd probably take credit for it.
They would be like, oh my gosh, it's really working.
Our plan worked.
Yes. So to that extent, there is some truth to what you say.
Infiltrate and conquer.
Right. But you know what the big problem is? But here's the big problem: is like very few people belong to the U.S. Communist Party.
The big problem, of course, is the organization known as government, and that it only uses one method to get its way, and that is violence, that is coercion, force. Right? That's the only tool that they have at their disposal. They don't do anything voluntarily. They don't. Nothing they do is voluntarily done. Zero, zilch, nil, none.
No, but the average person is that whatever they get free health care, and disability.
It's not free. Somebody pays for it. Doctors don't just volunteer their time.
Stolen health care.
Yes.
Okay, the
it wasn't distributed. It's not like someone said, you get $1 million and you get 5. It was created and then stolen and...
But it's communism, it's socialism, but most people that are involved with this program that benefit from it, they think it's capitalism because they have the propaganda. They control the media. They don't know that it's communism. They don't know that it's socialism. And people that benefit, like I know that it's socialism. I get Medicaid, I get disability.
There's no part of our medical system that is capitalist in any way, shape, or form outside of like cosmetic surgeries, honestly.
Eye care, generally speaking. Right, you can.
Well, you know,
$49 checkup at Walmart.
I'm sorry.
No, the hearing aid it's capitalist because it's extortion. Okay, because they don't even the hearing aid is like 1,500 ones really that are good.
That doesn't make it extortion.
I don't know how much they take. I mean, because it's the profit, it's a capitalist greed of the hearing aid companies that will not let you pay for $150.
They serve a limited market. They serve a limited market, and they have to do all that research and development to make them smaller, better quality, fits more comfortable in your ear.
And one of the myths is the idea that they get to set the prices. They don't get to set their prices.
No.
If they got to set their prices, they would charge $1 Googleplex dollars for each unit. They don't get to set those prices. You do.
Well, look at it, and it's the same thing with the insulin company. The president, they're trying to make it a cap. You should not charge more than $100 per month for anybody.
Look, if you want cheap insulin, then pull the regulations off of producing it.
Right. The thing that makes the medical, whatever, insert medical thing here, the thing that makes it so expensive is the enormity of the bureaucracy of compliance that government forces these companies to do. I was employed, I had a temp job at a medical manufacturing company where they made a product that literally cost $49, but retailed for over $2,000, not because they were greedy and profit-driven, but because they had to pay to maintain all the compliance. Thanks for the call, Sarah. We appreciate it. 603-283-6160. Coming up, we will get around to talking about this potential bill doubling your taxes.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market. Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky says 100 civilians have been evacuated from the besieged Azovstal steel plant in the port city of Mariupol on the Black Sea coast. With the city believed to be largely under Russian control, hundreds of civilians have been hiding in the plant for weeks, along with an unknown number of Ukrainian fighters. FSN's William Denzelo is in the Latvian capital Riga with more.
This is believed to be a coordinated effort between the UN, between the Red Cross, as well as with coordination from Ukraine as well as Russia. According to UN officials, this has been a difficult operation. They're not providing much in way of details as to not compromise the effectiveness and the success of this mission. Of course, this has very much been a long time coming. This is an area that has been besieged by Russian shelling for a number of days. Reports of food, water and medicine running out, especially in that steelworks facility.
The Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives, Nancy Pelosi, led a congressional delegation on a surprise visit to Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, over the weekend, where she met with Ukrainian President Zelensky. The veteran lawmaker is the highest-ranking U.S. official to visit the country since the conflict began. After traveling from Kyiv to neighboring Poland, Speaker Pelosi reiterated U.S. support for Ukraine's resistance to the Russian invasion.
I'm very honored to be with a very distinguished congressional delegation that has traveled here to send a clear message to the world. America stands with Ukraine. We stand with Ukraine until victory is won.
The visit comes just days after U.S. President Joe Biden proposed a $33 billion aid package for Ukraine, which includes more than $20 billion for military equipment. In other news, police in France have arrested 54 people in Paris taking part in annual May Day worker protests. The protesters were angry about newly re-elected President Emmanuel Macron's plan to raise the country's retirement age, as well as wage stagnation. And the family of Paul Rusesabagina, the hero of the Oscar-nominated film Hotel Rwanda, have filed a $400 million lawsuit in the U.S. over his alleged abduction and torture by the Rwandan government. Last year, a Rwandan court sentenced Rusesabagina to 25 years in prison on terrorism charges over his support for a rebel group seeking to overthrow the government. His family says he was tricked into returning to the country from the U.S., where he was a resident. Rusesabagina is credited with helping save more than 1,000 people during the Rwandan genocide of 1994, which was perpetrated largely against the country's minority Tutsi ethnic group. From Bureaus Worldwide, this is...
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
And we're back.
And? What do you mean, and?
That's what I said, and.
What was the thing before, and?
We were at break. And now we're back.
And we're back. Okay. All right. I want to clarify the and portion of your re-intro.
It also implies that there was something before, and we're back.
We're going to talk about whether or not your taxes will double if you aren't vaccinated.
Maybe.
Maybe, if we get around to it.
And we're back.
Depends on how many tangents we go on between now and when we get around to that.
But how many cosines do we go on?
Cosines?
Instead of a tangent?
Are you going to, like...
It was a math joke.
You going to put your name down on, like, a mortgage for me or something?
It was a trigonometry joke.
Trigonometry leading directly into contract law.
I was told there would be no
Clearly
math.
we're the popular kids.
You did not get the memo.
I was told there'd be no math.
When the smart guy sits in the chair, there's going to be smart guy talk, and sometimes that includes math.
I would, however, like to point out to anybody that's old enough to have taught grade school and middle school and, well, even high school.
Calculator in my pocket, sucker.
Yeah, they used to all say, you have to learn this math because there's no way you'll ever be able to carry a calculator with you wherever you go. Well, turns out there's one in my pocket. There's one in your pocket. There's one in everybody's pocket.
I remember
wherever
when
you
my
go.
watch disproved them.
We went to the carnival last night, and I calculated how many coupon tickets we were going to need before I went and bought them. I'm like, okay, we need like 481 to make it through the end of the night. We're buying that much, and then we're done. Because you know why? Because I had a calculator in my pocket.
603-283-6160 is the telephone number here in the studio. If you'd like to join us, your calls are welcome. Phones are open. In the studio, it's myself, the captain.
Beakless Mountaineer.
And Richie Rich.
All right, fine. I guess we'll talk about this.
Since you guys didn't call in, we'll do the article.
You guys have run out of stuff to tangent me on. That's the same article we talked about in the first segment.
Uh-oh.
All right, here we go. There were also a couple articles about this. I just grabbed Zero Hedge because I like mentioning that it was written by Tyler Durden.
Yep.
Who writes everything for Zero Hedge.
Is it one guy, or is it that's just the collective name for multiple writers?
The answer is Satoshi Nakamoto.
Okay.
Insert shoulder shrug here. This was posted today, and the headline reads, New COVID bill fines parents for unvaxxed kids and doubles income taxes.
That'll end well. Carrot and stick. You could have taken the free donut. Now your taxes are doubling.
And to some extent, this, like most headlines, it's a little bit sensationalized. We'll get into the meat of what this actually is. But even like with what it actually is, it's still super absurd.
Yeah.
That, anybody out there listening, if you think representatives of the organization known as government are on your side or they're there to do some sort of good for you, they're not. They're absolutely not.
We talked about this a little bit during the break, right? You had the opportunity to get vaccinated on your own. You could have voluntarily done it and got vaccinated.
Could have.
And then you wouldn't have been forced.
Could have even gotten paid for it.
But because you didn't want to do it voluntarily,
In pot and donuts.
Now the government's going to make you do it. Or else.
The article begins. An absurd COVID-19 bill by radical leftist Rhode Island Senator Samuel W. Bell says that residents who refuse the vaccine and its booster shots are subjected to fines and pay more income tax unless they receive an exemption. Bell introduced Rhode Island Senate Bill S-2552 on March 1st. As of last week, the bill had not been passed into law, and it's currently in review by the Senate Health and Human Services Committee. S2552 states, eligible Rhode Island residents would have to be vaccinated against COVID. If they reject, they could face a $50 monthly fine and pay double the state income tax. There are also fines for unvaccinated children under the age of 16 that would be imposed on the parents. Text from the bill reads, this act would mandate all residents 16 years or older to be vaccinated against COVID-19.
Hasn't this dude got the memo that COVID's over?
If a resident under 16 years of age, the resident would be required to be immunized against COVID-19, with the responsibility for ensuring compliance falling on all parents or guardians with medical consent powers.
Someone needs to remind him that he should be writing bills about Ukraine at this point in time.
Additionally, any person who violates this chapter would be required to pay a monthly civil penalty of $50 and would owe twice the amount of personal income taxes.
Rhode Island must be hurting.
Rhode Island must be totalitarian. This is a ridiculous proposal.
Okay, so here's the weird thing that goes through my head when I hear that from the captain. There's going to be an exodus from Rhode Island, and those yahoos are going to come up here for freedom.
Cool.
Maybe.
I mean,
I want freedom lovers here. I don't want just.
I don't want refugees.
Look, if you're gonna,
Right.
if you're gonna pick up stakes and move somewhere, okay. I mean, honestly,
I want
at
a
that
T-bone.
point, like, if you are that devoted to
Porterhouse?
not getting a shot or not paying the extra taxes, okay. I mean, you're moving for the right reason.
If you're picking up steaks, I'd like a T-bone, if not a porterhouse.
Oh, porterhouse.
I know, it sounds delicious.
Well, I would just like to say that this is the price of living in a civil society, is that they get to own you and tell you what to do.
Right. Like the captain said, I'm not closed borders necessarily, but refugee status like that,
Yeah, I mean, as far as the freedom movement is concerned, we want freedom-oriented people who are ready to do something, who don't want to be the person who sat around and did nothing while all of this crazy crap goes down. You want to be a part of the solution. That's the kind of people we want in the freedom movement. We don't like. I mean, if there have to be refugees because, Massachusetts is, okay, but that's not what the freedom movement here in New Hampshire is about. The freedom movement here in New Hampshire is about bringing people who love freedom, who love liberty, and want to create a place for people who love liberty and freedom to be, because there should be one place, if not more, but there should be at least one place where people like us can go and be left the frick alone.
Right, because the refugees are going to come up here and go like, well, I didn't get my shot, but you still need a permit for that firearm. I don't want that guy.
I don't think you're right on that one.
Okay.
So, and the thing is, like, a lot of this has been political divide. So, like, if Trump had come out and been like, hugely pro-mask and hugely in favor of the vaccine.
He was Operation Warp Speed.
He gets literally booed when he talks about these things.
Understood,
now,
which is why
it doesn't matter. He put it into
been
play.
Like super in favor of it, I'm pretty sure the left would have been masks are dumb, and their whole thing would have been not wearing masks. But
if Trump had won, you would have seen that.
But that's not how this shook out.
All the more reason.
The people that are coming up here from Rhode Island because of this are not going to regulate your gun ownership. They are, on the other hand, going to make sure that pot never gets legalized, and they might recriminalize that.
The New Hampshire legislation is already doing a fantastic job of preventing marijuana legalization, as they did the other day.
Yeah, it's one of the few things that gets marked ought to pass and still doesn't get passed.
This guy, though, Samuel Bell, what was his actual? Samuel W. Bell. The W is for wussy. I don't know what it's for, really. Samuel W. Bell. He says, the reason I introduced the bill is we have a crisis with the pandemic. Really, Samuel? Do we really?
That's what I'm saying. He didn't get the memo. It's Ukraine now.
He says thousands of Rhode Islanders have died. He doesn't say because of COVID. He just says they've died. That's going to happen. The baby boomers, they're dying. I have had really painful calls from constituents who can't go to the store. We'll tell you what else Samuel L. Bell said. Coming up here on Free Talk Live, 603-283-6160. Are you willing to have your taxes doubled to remain unvaxxed? More coming up.
If you're looking for work, there's a piece of paper more important than your resume. It's the cover letter attached if you're snail mailing, or the email to which you attach your resume. Make it 4 short paragraphs. Paragraph 1, say that you're applying for work. The person you're sending to gets a ton of mail about all sorts of things. If you have a password, that's your first sentence. Tom Nelson tells me you and I should meet. Paragraph 2, what you do and how that relates to the opening. Be as specific as possible. Paragraph 3, why you want this particular job. I'm originally from Boston, so I know the market well. I have family and friends in the area, so this would be a homecoming for me. Paragraph 4, unless the job posting stipulates no calls, and I will call you to follow up. Thank you in advance for your time. From survivalspeech.com, I'm Holland Cook.
I'm crazy about My Magic Mud. This is the most important oral care product created this millennium, and I'm not kidding. We all have different opinions on politics and issues, but we all have mouths. And I want yours to be as clean as possible, with teeth as bright as they were meant to be. I will never be without My Magic Mud. It's a little surprising, but man, does it work. If you only listen to one thing I say ever, go to mymagicmud.com and get 20% off with code FTL. mymagicmud.com, code FTL.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
Free Talk Live.
But we have the opportunity. No one has the opportunity.
Look, just hold on. Just because the slaves can pick the head slave doesn't mean that the slaves are free.
Oh, that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. Look, if people actually got up and voted for things, there might actually be some change.
People do actually get up and vote for things, and change always results in the same crap.
What are you going to do that's different by voting?
Two choices between crap sandwiches, man.
You're speaking out of both sides of your mouth. On the one hand, you're saying, oh, hardly anybody votes, so you can barely say this is a person of right. And then I say, well, gosh, if people get up and vote, maybe things will change.
Hold on, that was only one thing he brought up.
Here's what I mean.
When people do vote, it doesn't make any difference because of a number of reasons.
People never vote in numbers that could actually reflect what
Why should I vote for any of these thugs? They're killers. They're murderers.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern. Live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
And we're back.
Yes, we are back. It is Free Talk Live. We're alive. That's right, live. Live from King, New Hampshire, it's Sunday night.
Sunday.
Sell you the whole seat, but you'll only need the edge.
Monster Truck Jamboree and Radio Show.
That's right. We are a radio show on close to 200 radio stations, plus the internet and some satellite stations. So in that respect, we're worldwide, bro. And what do we talk about here? Freedom, liberty, peace. How to achieve these things. That's the perspective that we come from. Phones are open, so you're welcome to talk about any subject that's on your mind. And in the studio tonight, it's myself, the captain.
Peakless Mountaineer.
Is that like the captain in Tenier?
And Richie Rich.
He's been stepping on the end of my name, so I figured I'd make him stumble on that one.
Or it sounded more like you stumbled on that one.
Wait, who stepped on your name?
No, that was intentional.
Richie Rich stepped on your name? Oh, because I've stepped on your name before. I've called you things like Meekless Pountaineer. But anyway, that was just the one time, and it was meant in humor. So I hope your name, isn't butthurt.
It's not. It's Beakless Mountaineer. I thought we would know this.
Very good.
Abiogenesis.
Nice.
Haberdashery.
If you know what I'm saying.
If you know what I mean.
Free Talk Live's video archives have been over on Library for years already. Library is an uncensorable, decentralized, blockchain-based media sharing protocol, and we're big fans of that here on Free Talk Live. In 2020, Library launched Odyssey. That's a video sharing website in competition with YouTube, and it's really taking off. So it's got over 1 million channels now, many of whom are disaffected YouTube creators. During YouTube's crackdown for not towing the government line on COVID, the Free Talk Live YouTube channel started receiving strikes, could be completely taken down at any time. Thankfully, Odyssey started offering live streaming, so now we're streaming video live every night and posting our video archives permanently to Odyssey. You can watch live or anytime on our channel by visiting video.freetalklive.com. If you want to go all in, download the desktop app over at lbry.com. And then every video archive you watch, you'll help to seed and keep it online forever. So go ahead and visit video.freetalklive.com. Follow us on Odyssey today. That's video.freetalklive.com.
Seed, reseed, and cis-seed. That's what we need.
Ooh, nice. I like the, yeah. Where others have failed, we will secede. That's the tagline I invented and like to use. We're going to talk more about this insane politician named Senator Samuel W. Bell out of Rhode Island and his insane proposal. But first, let's go to your calls and thoughts. We have Eli calling from Pennsylvania. Eli, you're on Free Talk Live.
Hi. Hope everybody's having a good night. And, looking at this kook from Rhode Island, it's not as crazy as you think when you look at the rest of the government and how they're acting towards this. Just they're normalizing people who they deem to be dissident as second-class citizens, to the point where you're not allowed to shop at the same stores. You have to carry around a card. You have to show proof that you comply, essentially, or else you don't have the same standard of living. And this is just the next step in what seems to be an ever-winding pathway.
Pretty soon there'll be separate water fountains.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of how in Islam they have a special tax for non-Muslims. So, they won't kill you for being Christian, but you will pay extra taxes. And again, this is a belief system. I mean, it has nothing to do with, the evidence or any of the real dangers. It has to do with you're not doing what we're doing.
I mean, the bottom line for me, of course, is nobody has any right to put anything into my body without my consent. And if you want to violate that consent, you're wrong.
And then they don't have the right to stop you from putting anything into your body.
The opposite of that is also true. Eli?
Exactly. And I think, we're seeing it now where not only are they denying us that right, but they're normalizing it in society where more and more measures can be taken against people who don't toe the line with what they say. And people are not going to lift a finger. They're not going to care. They're going to go along with life. And when people are being painted, in different colors of, hey, you don't do this, you don't say this, so we're going to take said measure against you. We're going to ruin your life. You're never going to get a job again. You're never, and so on and so forth.
They've also successfully turned people against each other.
Yeah. It's institutionalized hate, in my opinion. When there were, racial hate, right? You mentioned the separate water fountains.
Yep.
Right? That was hatred, institutionalized hatred on a race level, right? This is the same thing, but now instead of it being race, it's your medical status.
It's your belief system, really. And I mean, like all of these things that you're not supposed to target people on, like their belief system or their race. Well, I mean, even the racial angle. I know that in New York, the racial disparity of not getting the vaccine is huge. It is mostly black and brown people that haven't gotten it in New York. I wonder if it's the same, like as far as their proportions in Rhode Island.
Probably because they remember that they were targeted for experimentation before as well.
Right?
I don't know if this is true, but I read today.
Say it on air anyway.
I don't remember the source, but I read today that something like 400 employees of the CDC are unvaccinated.
Nice.
Eli?
Yeah, good for them. That's their choice ultimately, and I don't know. I think it's scary what we're seeing in the path that this is going down. Of hey, you need to do exactly what the government says, and similar with. We're seeing this disinformation commission about
the Ministry of Truth.
Well, exactly. Here's the tough question. What do we do about it?
Knocking down my door.
That is the tough question.
That's the hard question to answer because, what's the political solution? Because either side is going to use it to their advantage. Now they're going to be knocking down your door if you're not getting a vaccine. But if the other guys get in power, they're going to be knocking down your door if you're telling somebody, hey, it's okay if you like guys and you can like hold hands outside with them. It's insane to the point where all of these institutions of power are being weaponized against everybody, no matter what side you're on.
Yep.
And that's the scary part is what can you do when everybody's so willing to follow along with it, or if not follow along, just shut their mouth and take it.
Well, you can form your own society, which is very much what we've done here in New Hampshire.
Yeah, and continue to do. Hey, thanks for the call, Eli. We appreciate you.
And he's absolutely right about it being one side or the other. Like you're mentioning we don't want the Rhode Islanders to interfere with our gun rights, but the kind of statism that particular group does is a different kind of oppression. And right now they're being very libertarian because the other team is in power and the other team is making a big deal about being authoritarian, but 20 years from now, it will absolutely be reversed.
Yeah, it's not only this article about this Senator Samuel W. Bell and his insane proposal, but it's the people who have gone along with it. The people who there's memes floating around on the internet.
He's got his constituents asking for it.
There's memes floating around on the internet. I'm paraphrasing them, but they all say something like, when you read about history, like the rise of like the Nazis and that kind of a thing, you can see that the propaganda was pretty obviously propaganda. And you're like, how did these people ever fall for it? Like, I can't believe that people. And then you look at today's society and the propaganda that everybody's falling for, and you go, oh my, insert deity here. Like, people are falling for it every day. People are. Look at what happened to families during like the lockdowns, right? People disowned other parts of their family because they wouldn't come over or couldn't, or like felt like they had to, disowned people because they didn't see things the same way.
Oh, I flew 6,000 miles and didn't go visit family.
Right. And then, systemically, of course, people were prevented from going and seeing like the elderly and, their homes and that kind of thing because, we can't let the COVID in, and that kind of a thing. And then people started dying. Not of COVID, but of loneliness because they couldn't have any frickin' human contact. And that's no way to behave in a society, particularly for something that is a glorified version of a cold or flu.
Yeah. What was the IMF director talking about with unintended consequences because we focused only on this one thing? Yeah, in all of these things, it's that same thing happening over and over again.
More Free Talk Live is coming up. We'll talk about some other stuff, including a guy with 9 wives.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky says 100 civilians have been evacuated from the besieged Azovstal steel plant in the port city of Mariupol on the Black Sea coast. With the city believed to be largely under Russian control, hundreds of civilians have been hiding in the plant for weeks, along with an unknown number of Ukrainian fighters. FSN's William Denzelo is in the Latvian capital Riga with more.
This is believed to be a coordinated effort between the UN, between the Red Cross, as well as with coordination from Ukraine as well as Russia. According to UN officials, this has been a difficult operation. They're not providing much in way of details as to not compromise the effectiveness and the success of this mission. Of course, this has very much been a long time coming. This is an area that has been besieged by Russian shelling for a number of days. Reports of food, water and medicine running out, especially in that steelworks facility.
The Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives, Nancy Pelosi, led a congressional delegation on a surprise visit to Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, over the weekend, where she met with Ukrainian President Zelensky. The veteran lawmaker is the highest-ranking U.S. official to visit the country since the conflict began. After traveling from Kyiv to neighboring Poland, Speaker Pelosi reiterated U.S. support for Ukraine's resistance to the Russian invasion.
I'm very honored to be with a very distinguished congressional delegation that has traveled here to send a clear message to the world. America stands with Ukraine. We stand with Ukraine until victory is won.
The visit comes just days after U.S. President Joe Biden proposed a $33 billion aid package for Ukraine, which includes more than $20 billion for military equipment. In other news, police in France have arrested 54 people in Paris taking part in annual May Day worker protests. The protesters were angry about newly re-elected President Emmanuel Macron's plan to raise the country's retirement age, as well as wage stagnation. And the family of Paul Rusesabagina, the hero of the Oscar-nominated film Hotel Rwanda, have filed a $400 million lawsuit in the U.S. over his alleged abduction and torture by the Rwandan government. Last year, a Rwandan court sentenced Rusesabagina to 25 years in prison on terrorism charges over his support for a rebel group seeking to overthrow the government. His family says he was tricked into returning to the country from the U.S., where he was a resident. Rusesabagina is credited with helping save more than 1,000 people during the Rwandan genocide of 1994, which was perpetrated largely against the country's minority Tutsi ethnic group. From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. The presidency of the United Nations Security Council is in the hands this month of the United States, and the Biden administration is sure to use its month at the helm of the world body to create more difficulties for Russia over its war against Ukraine. Part of the focus is expected to be on the humanitarian crisis there, with the World Food Programme estimating that 47 million more people in 81 countries will experience acute hunger this year because of the Russian invasion. Jim Lindsay of the Council on Foreign Relations explains.
Almost half the people in Ukraine are now food insecure. You can expect an awful lot of finger pointing to be going on over the course of the month of May. The United States blames Russia for contributing to the current food crisis. Russia retorts that the problem isn't Russian actions, it's Western sanctions. Now, to put things in perspective, Ukraine and Russia supply about 30% of global wheat and barley supplies, a fifth of the world's corn, and over half of its sunflower oil. And to put things in perspective, global food prices in March were 34% higher than last year. So this is an inflationary impact that extends worldwide.
Russia held the presidency of the Security Council back in February, before the invasion of Ukraine had begun. It will be the turn of China to helm the body this June. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
The main news again. Ukraine's president says around 100 civilians have been evacuated from a besieged steel plant in the port city of Mariupol. U.S. lawmaker Nancy Pelosi makes a surprise visit to Kyiv, becoming the highest-ranking U.S. official to visit since the conflict began. And police in France arrest 54 people taking part in May Day worker protests against the policies of President Emmanuel Macron. That is the latest feature story news. Ira Spitzer reporting.
Last month, the FDA approved Halucex, a new class of weight loss drug that helps users avoid overeating by producing nightmarish hallucinations whenever food is around. Halucex targets the brain's cerebral cortex, stimulating the centers responsible for fear and visual processing. Test subjects reported an unprecedented decrease in appetite and showed dramatic weight loss, with only 18% reporting night terrors or subsequent cardiac arrest.
It's designed to make fatty and sugary foods even scarier. An apple just looks like it has fangs, but a milkshake will threaten you and your family by name.
Earlier incarnations of the drug proved to be too powerful and produced mental states in which test subjects no longer believed that food had ever existed. An unshakable belief that the subject had to eat all of the food on the planet in order to prevent food from rising up and destroying the human race.
No, you don't understand. I have to do this.
Or the conviction that food could be negotiated with diplomatically. With the Lab Report, I'm Aisha Patel.
This is the Onion News Network. Free Talk Live.
And we're back.
Yes, thank you for listening. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. It is Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is kicking off right now in the studio. It is myself, the Reverend Captain Kickass.
Pittance Mountaineer. Interrupting Cow. And Richie Rich.
He was interrupting Cow, too. He just interrupted the F out of you. Do you feel interrupted? You're not girl interrupted. You're like mountaineer interrupted.
Am I going to be interrupted if I answer?
Maybe. You'll certainly be interrupted by one of our callers.
Welcome to Interrupt Talk Live.
We've been talking about a whole bunch of stuff, but we have been talking about this insane Rhode Island Senator, Samuel W. Bell, who says if you're not vaccinated, you should be fined $50 a month And you should also have to pay double your income tax. That's right. That's the entire thing. That's the whole bit.
Whatever you're paying, just double it.
You
can afford that, right? Get vexed.
I just want to talk real quick about a response that somebody sent in, not to us, but to whoever was writing the story over at Zero Hedge, Mr. Durden. They have a screenshot of it. You can go read it for yourself over there. But it says, "Hey, Bell, F you, F your socialism, F your Democratic Socialist Party, and F your families. You attack our kids, we attack yours. You attack our bank accounts, we attack yours. You effing communist. The vaccines are maiming and killing people all over the world. How many lawyers did the government have to hire to handle all the vaccine injury cases? Don't know. It's published. You effing communist." It goes on with many other colorful metaphors and basically calls this guy exactly what he is. And
a mofo.
I have to believe that there are many others who feel the same way. And so we could continue talking about that. But first, I want to bring on Will, who's calling from New Hampshire. Will, you're on Free Talk Live.
Hello. Today I would like to talk about this insane Crypto 6 situation. And there's been a lot of new news in the last couple of weeks, but specifically what I'd like to talk about is one of the plea agreement hearings 3 weeks ago and what transpired there.
Can we refer to them as the Crypt 2 now?
Crypt 2? There's still 6 of them who were arrested and otherwise, no-knock raided at 6 a.m. in their homes and that kind of thing. So, I think the name sticks. It's also, for folks not familiar with the situation, on March 16th of last year, a whole bunch of different federal goons got together and raided a bunch of places, including this studio right here. You can read and see videos and learn more over at thecrypto6.com. So, Will, bring us up to speed and then, talk about the thing you want to talk about.
So, essentially, the federal government has been doing what they do as far as this prosecution. And about 3 weeks ago, the first of the Crypto 6 took a plea deal. I believe this was Andrew Spinella. Mm-hmm. And I was not actually at this hearing, but one of our other local activists were. And something happened, which I think drives home how ridiculous this whole situation was. Essentially, they agreed that they would plead guilty to wire fraud in exchange for the state dropping everything else, essentially. And I don't know what the details of this plea deal is, and ultimately the judge will decide in 2 months once the hearing comes up. But the judge, in taking in all of the arguments from the state, asked what type of restitution was in order for this particular crime. And the state's response purportedly was that restitution would not be in order because there was nothing taken of value from the bank who was the supposed victim. So this person, this activist, is going to, I don't know if there will be jail time or whatever the sentence happens to be. It will be for fraud when all parties involved, including the prosecutor, have stated that nothing was actually defrauded. And I think that is just actual craziness that drives home this entire prosecution of the Crypto 6.
Let me ask you a question real quick, Will, because I'm not following this as closely as you. They entered into agreement, but has the plea actually been entered then? Because with that information, right, I'd be like, well, if they can't prove damage, maybe I don't want to plead guilty to a count of wire fraud.
So the plea had been entered, and this was at the hearing where they entered that plea. So after they enter their plea, the judge is taking in all of the information, and one of those is that restitution was not in order because nothing was actually defrauded.
Okay. I would say it would behoove the judge then to throw out the case immediately, right? Like that would be justice in that case. You're telling me you're trying to get him to plead guilty for fraud, and you can't prove any damages, and the state, the government is still going to accept a guilty plea? That's a poor judge.
I would agree. That's what the judge should do. That said, this is a judge who's part of a system who is part of that same system who is pushing forward these charges. So I doubt that would actually happen. But ultimately, we won't know for about 8 weeks when the sentencing hearing comes up.
Yeah, this is a really good illustration of how insane the federal government is with regards to victimless crimes. As libertarians, anarchists, voluntarists, whatever term we want to call ourselves, the general belief is no victim, no crime. And in fact, I would say that if you explain that to most people on planet Earth, they would agree. Oh, nobody has been harmed, no property damage has been done, then there is no crime. And it sounds to me like this is the case here. Will, do you agree?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I doubt your average 6-year-old would know the word defrauded or some of that terminology. However, if you were to break it down to your average 6-year-old and say that someone is potentially going to jail for stealing something, even though nothing was actually stolen, I think your average 6-year-old would see the logical fallacy there. Yet with all the prestige and majesty of this court system, it's moving forward on that basis.
Well, and it strikes me, so their job is to make the court look good, and they've usually even taken an oath to that effect. And it seems to me that this makes the court look like an idiot. So, from my perspective, if it was in a contract I was involved in, I would consider this judge to be in breach of contract because you're not upholding the court system. Now, on the other hand, what you are effectively doing is threatening people. What you are doing is intimidating people, and you are making sure that normal people never get involved in anything innovative. Because if normal people get involved in something innovative, the government might decide that it doesn't like that and put you in jail for it.
I've been to court a number of times for much lesser charges. And what I can say wholeheartedly from my experience is you don't go to court to get justice. Not in this country.
Yeah, agreed. What do you think is going to happen, with this information, Will? I know you're following it closely. Do you think that this information is going to be useful to the other defendants in the case?
I hope the remaining 2 use it. Look, they already can't prove that anyone's been harmed.
Yeah, I have no idea. Now, when they did sign these things, the documents are publicly available on Pacer, which is the court system where you can pay and they'll show you these court documents. Mm-hmm. They did end up signing a very lengthy plea agreement that says that they have to admit fault, that they will not afterwards say that they didn't actually do it or anything like that. I don't know how all of that will play with the other 2 remaining defendants, which is Ian and Aria. Okay.
603-283-6160 is the phone number if you'd like to join us here on Free Talk Live. More is coming up.
So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
Brute force, intransigent defiance, adamantine will. These are the hallmarks of the AI tank. These gigantic machines have the firepower of an army, but they also have their own sense of honor and duty. When the world breakers arrive, battle will be joined, planets will shake, and war and peace will never be the same again. World Breakers. Stories from David Weber, Larry Correia, and more. Available August 3rd from BaneBooks.com.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Hi, I'm Derek J. To me, an activist's calling is to actively work to advance a cause. The cause for which I work is personal freedom. I believe my life is best when I engage in voluntary interactions and self-government. I reject the idea that anyone else has a higher claim to my life or my body than I do. I see people who call themselves the government as a threat to my personal freedom. I realize you may feel differently, but my relationship with the people who call themselves the government is completely involuntary. If Starbucks used some of its money to drop bombs, I wouldn't shop there. So why would I support the American empire? The empire does not require my consent.
Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree. Watch it for free and order the Director's Cut DVD at victimlesscrimespree.com. That's victimlesscrimespree.com. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
And we're back.
Yes, we are back. It is Free Talk Live. We're a live radio program where you can call in and talk about whatever is on your mind. In the studio tonight, it's myself, the captain.
The Eagles Mountaineer.
My turn. And Richie Rich.
It's very good. Well done. You get 2 merits.
2 merits.
2 credits.
Ooh.
The telephone number 603-283-6160. We'll get to your calls momentarily, but Forkfest 2022 is coming up. You can join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 27th through July 3rd for the 6th annual Forkfest at Rogers Campground in the gorgeous White Mountains of New Hampshire. Forkfest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, also known as Porkfest. So you got Porkfest followed by Forkfest. Forkfest takes place the week after Porkfest, but it is decentralized, which means there's no ticket cost for the event, and no one is in charge of the event. So if you want to just come and hang out, you can do that. If you want to put something on, we encourage that. If you want to bring an event or something for others to enjoy, we encourage you to do that as well. All you have to do is reserve your camping site, RV site, or your motel room with Rogers Campground for June 27th through July 3rd. I can't think of a better place to celebrate Independence Day than around other freedom-loving people here in New Hampshire. You can find out more over at the unofficial website forkfest.party, where you can connect with other attendees. You can also use the Telegram and Matrix chat rooms that can all be found at forkfest.party. Again, forkfest.party. We hope to see you there. Come party, well, with us. All right, we've been talking about Samuel W. Bell, the insane politician, senator, if you will, from Rhode Island, who has proposed...
What did that one commenter call him again?
The caller or the guy?
No, the comment from the article.
Oh, from the article, yeah. A whole bunch
An
of
effing-effer.
It's literally
that's what I was getting at.
I think of him as Senator Dumbbell, but okay.
Oh, nice, yeah. Ding-a-ling. All right, bells, go ding.
There you
right?
go.
Yeah, okay. At any rate, we could talk more about that, but let's go to your calls and thoughts. First, we have Major Payne calling from Michigan. Major, you're on Free Talk Live.
Hey, I'm here. Yes, my campfire compadres, may your stones be sound and your pokers be hot. All right.
Who's playing Poker Stone?
Checker, chest, and poker.
Well, yeah, you got to have. You don't want to pick river rocks because they can have water inside them and they will actually blow up when the fire gets too hot.
At my favorite bar, there's always liquor available in the front, and then there's poker in the rear.
There you go.
Well, yeah, that was the old Western Saloon.
What's on your mind, Major?
Anyway, yeah, I was married to a Bell, this crazy guy from Rhode Island, and seems to me his name was John W. Bell, and he was evidently was adopted by the Cherokees somewhere in the late 17, early 1800s.
Okay.
He was, by recollection, a big red-headed fella, so I'm figuring he was Scotch, maybe Scotch-Irish.
Sort of a
But anyway,
peakless mountaineer-looking guy?
He rose to prominence among the Cherokees, and by the time the Trail of Tears came, he led half of the tribe when they decided to split it at a certain pass in the Appalachian Mountains when they were marching to Oklahoma, and many died. But anyway, this guy was quite a what would you call him? A whore dog, I guess.
Okay.
But the Indians had a weird way. I mean, the squaws chose who they wanted to bet, so they would basically lift up the flap of your teepee and roll up underneath there if they wanted to have you. And he was, a great chief, so he had many squaws and many babies. So there's many bells.
Okay.
But one time he evidently offended the wrong squaw, and she was an Indian witch, and she put a generational curse on them.
And that's where the term squabble comes from for couple disputes.
Squabble?
Squabble.
I've never heard that one.
Squabble?
Oh, that's terrible.
Squabble.
Yeah, Richie Rich is making a terrible pun.
I'm waiting for the punchline of the story.
Hey, I got thrown off the air last week for making pretty much such a statement. It was
it was the repeated use of a word that starts with P and rhymes with this.
Right. But I have used that, but I have never used it twice.
I know, but our
sitting.
producers were insistent, so.
Right.
Don't do it again.
It's one of the 7 words, man. The George Carlins, don't say them.
Yes.
Don't say any of them, but it is one of them.
It's to them. But anyway, yeah, that's where a lot of the bells came from. And as far as personality traits, my ex-wife was greedy and manipulative, so I think that's carrying on too. Lord knows how much weight all this old squaw carried, but there you go, and here we are.
Do you think that this Senator Samuel W. Bell is related to the...
I do believe.
Yeah.
If he does a blood test and he's got some Cherokee in him, I guarantee he is.
It's related to Elizabeth Warren.
So what was the
You do believe.
What was the curse anyway?
I don't know, dude. I wasn't there.
Yeah, I just found out about it.
Apparently,
this whole time we thought that you were like the oldest guy to ever have lived.
Yeah.
Well, I Captain, I think I got 8 years on you.
Is that all? Feels like a lot longer.
I've been saving a 72 CUDA story for you.
Oh, nice.
I remember you brought that up one time.
I did. I wrote in one.
I taught one to be a flying fish. You wouldn't believe it. I shouldn't even be here talking to you.
All right. Well, we'll have to get around to that another time. Thanks for the call, Major. We appreciate it. Yeah. So the other things Mr. Bell said were the senator. He said, the reason I introduced the bill is we have a crisis with the pandemic. Thousands of Rhode Islanders have died. I've had really painful calls from constituents who can't go to the store because they're immunocompromised, who have lost loved ones to this pandemic, who are really ill and not fully recovered, suffering long-term effects. Okay, so first of all,
and they're all going to get the exemption because they're too sick to get the vaccine.
If somebody's immunocompromised, going to the store is always a risk for them.
Right.
Always. At any time.
It always will be.
And all of the bad things that, folks like Anthony Fauci said were going to happen regarding the pandemic didn't, right? So, the deaths have tapered off. The masks, of course, were ineffective. We knew that a long time ago, and all that kind of thing. The article continues, Bell has faced harsh criticism for the introduction of the bill. We talked about the email that he received.
Wait, he had all those constituents calling in, and he's facing harsh criticism? Yeah. Where's his constituents?
Right. The article continues, subjecting adults to fines and more taxes for not being vaxxed or even their kids not being vaxxed is a significant overreach by government. Also, the vaccine itself is not risk-free, particularly for children. 603-283-6160 is the phone number here. Would you want your taxes doubled if your children aren't vaccinated? Give us a call. More Free Talk Live is coming up.
Carl Watner, longtime proponent of a voluntary society, died last December. You may have seen his articles published on his website, voluntarist.com, in his newsletter, The Voluntarist, the Mises Institute, or elsewhere over the last 40 years. His newest book, I Must Speak Out, Volume 2, The Best of the Voluntarist, is now available via Liberty Under Attack Publications. This 430-page second volume spans the years of 2000 through 2020 and includes articles by Carl Watner, Hans Hermann Hoppe, Carl Hess, Benjamin Tucker, George H. Smith, Lysander Spooner, Pete Eyre, Joyce Brand, and many others. I Must Speak Out is for the newly initiated, the veteran voluntarist, or anywhere in between. Buy the book now at libertyunderattack.com/voluntarist. For more great content on building a voluntary society and for Carl's extensive archives, check out voluntarist.com.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky says 100 civilians have been evacuated from the besieged Azovstal steel plant in the port city of Mariupol on the Black Sea coast. With the city believed to be largely under Russian control, hundreds of civilians have been hiding in the plant for weeks, along with an unknown number of Ukrainian fighters. FSN's William Denzelo is in the Latvian capital Riga with more.
This is believed to be a coordinated effort between the UN, between the Red Cross, as well as with coordination from Ukraine as well as Russia. According to UN officials, this has been a difficult operation. They're not providing much in way of details as to not compromise the effectiveness and the success of this mission. Of course, this has very much been a long time coming. This is an area that has been besieged by Russian shelling for a number of days. Reports of food, water and medicine running out, especially in that steelworks facility.
The Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives, Nancy Pelosi, led a congressional delegation on a surprise visit to Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, over the weekend, where she met with Ukrainian President Zelensky. The veteran lawmaker is the highest-ranking U.S. official to visit the country since the conflict began. After traveling from Kyiv to neighboring Poland, Speaker Pelosi reiterated U.S. support for Ukraine's resistance to the Russian invasion.
I'm very honored to be with a very distinguished congressional delegation that has traveled here to send a clear message to the world. America stands with Ukraine. We stand with Ukraine until victory is won.
The visit comes just days after U.S. President Joe Biden proposed a $33 billion aid package for Ukraine, which includes more than $20 billion for military equipment. In other news, police in France have arrested 54 people in Paris taking part in annual May Day worker protests. The protesters were angry about newly re-elected President Emmanuel Macron's plan to raise the country's retirement age, as well as wage stagnation. And the family of Paul Rusesabagina, the hero of the Oscar-nominated film Hotel Rwanda, have filed a $400 million lawsuit in the U.S. over his alleged abduction and torture by the Rwandan government. Last year, a Rwandan court sentenced Rusesabagina to 25 years in prison on terrorism charges over his support for a rebel group seeking to overthrow the government. His family says he was tricked into returning to the country from the U.S., where he was a resident. Rusesabagina is credited with helping save more than 1,000 people during the Rwandan genocide of 1994, which was perpetrated largely against the country's minority Tutsi ethnic group. From Bureaus Worldwide, this is...
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
And we're back.
A little more enthusiasm.
And we're back.
Yes, thank you. All right. Yes, we are back. It is Free Talk Live, the Sunday night edition. In the studio, it's myself, the captain.
Faithless Mountaineer.
And Richie Rich.
The telephone number, 603-283-6160. That is the number. We'll get to your calls and thoughts momentarily. But first, I need to say thank you to Brianna Hansen. Brianna is a silver level amplifier, and that means she donates $5 over at amps.freetalklive.com, amps.freetalklive.com. What is AMPS? Well, we refer to it as the Amplifier Program. AMPS stands for Advertise, Market, Promote, and Support. And if you enjoy this show, this radio program that you're listening to, if you enjoy the hosts, the co-hosts, the topics, the speakers, the callers, if you find value in that and you want to see the message of freedom, peace, liberty spread further, why, you can help us get this show onto more radio stations and promote this show online and on satellite by becoming an amplifier over at amps.freetalklive.com. It's a Patreon type page. We only ask for $5. There's different levels. You can give more if you like, if you're feeling generous. We appreciate it. But I want to say thank you to Brianna Hansen. We appreciate you. Thank you. All right. Moving right along, let's go to your calls and thoughts. Let's first go to David in New Mexico. David, you're on Free Talk Live.
Hell's bells.
Hey, that's funny. I actually know those girls, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, there is an all-female AC/DC tribute band called Hell's Bells, Belles.
Nice.
And they are great. They're the only AC/DC tribute band to be endorsed by AC/DC themselves. So AC/DC has come out and said, these chicks rock. You have our blessing and our endorsement.
That is cool.
Anyway, what's on your mind, David?
Yeah, thanks for reminding me. I saw them on the web one time. Somebody was doing a Periscope or something like that. I saw them. They're good. That explains where the Ma Bell and all the baby bells came from too. I guess the Major Payne story.
Bunch of ding dongs.
A bunch of ding dongs. So white hat judges. What do you got against white hat judges?
Everything.
Everything.
So it's impossible for a white hat judge to be consistently white hat because they're employed by an agency of violence and coercion.
Yeah, true. They got that one major obstacle, yes, but there's still is a lot of things that a person can do within the system. I mean, put it this way: if you're, and first of all, I'm talking about last night. I had mentioned in New Mexico, Albuquerque, the Metro Court. Since I rag on bad judges all the time, I thought I'd throw in a few good ones for once. And Frank Cedillo and Victor Valdez and Maria Dominguez, all at the Metro Court, coincidentally. I've had positive experiences with them, and that's before they ever ruled in my favor, that they were treating me as a human being, treating me decently, and not just in very shallow ways, but in meaningful ways.
Yeah.
So Frank Cedillo, Maria Dominguez, and Victor Valdez. So, but yeah, they it's hard for a good judge to overcome the bad of the system. They can do a bunch of little things that actually they're not so little. They can do some pretty major things if you really want to dissect it.
Oh, very, yeah.
But
to the extent that libertarians, generally speaking, all have a very fond sentiment for the former politician and Dr. Ron Paul. Now, Ron Paul was responsible for bringing many people to the ideas of liberty, freedom, libertarians,
but
anarchists.
held them in the context of the state.
But, well, he himself was a slave to statism, and that is to say that while he said a bunch of good stuff and he generally voted no on everything that he said he would vote no on, the things that he did pass were filled with pork. Right.
So what?
And well, I'm just saying that he participated.
And he put his own pork
okay,
in the
so,
nose stuff.
No, hang on.
No. I mean,
Hold on, let me finish.
fact, wouldn't that make it less likely that they pass?
May I finish? I'm just saying that he was responsible for statist activities that forced other people to do things that they didn't want to do because of the position that he held. When you are an employee of government, you cannot help but force other people to do other people's desires. It's just a part of the organization. This isn't a rag on Ron Paul. This is just a fact that you can be the best possible person. You can be the most principled person on planet Earth. And as soon as you start getting a paycheck from a government entity, you are indeed forcing other people to somebody else's preference, regardless of whether you're a white hat like Ron Paul or, as David considers these judges to be white hats. It's impossible for them to be 100% on their principles because they're employed by an agency that is not principled and, in fact, is based in violence and coercion. That's all I'm saying.
I was in a recent conversation with an angel and it came like, how anti-state are you? Mm-hmm. Right, because locally there was like an accident on the freeway here, and it was like a cop cruiser that got smashed. And I went, good. Like what? What do you mean? What if it was like a good cop? I'm like,
there aren't any.
Right, but I said I hate the state and status so much. I would have the same reaction if it turned out to be a public school teacher, because they get a paycheck from the state, and that's enough for me.
Yep, David.
Like no white hats there.
David?
Yeah, point's been basically made. So, once again, that's Frank Cedillo, Maria Dominguez, and Victor Valdez deserve, a round of applause for being decent.
Being decent to you.
Boo.
All right.
Well, some insertions come with lubrication, and that's what this is.
We appreciate the call, David. Thank you. Did you have more to say about Ron Paul?
Yeah.
I feel like I cut you off, and I didn't want to. I just wanted to finish my thought.
Yeah, we were kind of sorry for talking over it. It's an argument that I've heard several times as far as a critique of Ron Paul, and I don't think that it really holds a lot of merit. So, I mean, number one, it's okay, here's a bill that I don't want to pass, that I'm going to vote against, but I'm going to put stuff in it so that I can keep my position.
Right.
Okay. Also, doesn't
how
putting more
principled
stuff
is
in
that?
it.
Look, he puts
okay.
pork.
So there's so imagine, if you will, that I have a printing press. I'm going to print up some $100 bills. There's going to be $1 million are getting added in one way or another. Now, is it a better thing if I hand those out to freedom-loving people as opposed to at random or even pro-communism people?
I don't think Ron Paul gets to choose. I don't think he gets to insert stuff into that bill that says, well, a bigger percentage of that goes to my constituents in Texas, but I'm going to vote no so I can maintain my Dr. No status, even though I know it's going to pass. Like,
I see nothing wrong with that.
Okay.
Okay, so if this is getting printed up anyway, it's a better thing that it goes to more liberty.
Okay.
So here's
also, having more of it in there makes it less likely to pass.
So libertarians should get jobs working for the state so they can put their retirement towards activist activities then.
I don't follow you at all.
I see what you're saying. Here's my take on it. I don't know about you guys, but I was a statist.
No.
Once upon a time. And coming out of the fog of statism is a difficult thing for a human being to do. You have to be able to be honest with yourself. You have to be able to see the principle and follow it, whether or not something is principled, through a process that is akin to rewiring yourself. The bottom line is, I would much rather have had Ron Paul than not. Right? Does that mean he was 100% principled in all of his actions? No. In fact, quite the opposite.
And so we critique him in those areas.
603-283-6160. More Free Talk Live is coming up.
On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
You can help more people hear the message of liberty by joining Free Talk Live's AMPS program on Patreon for as little as $5 a month. And you'll get access to special perks. Visit amps.freetalklive.com, amps.freetalklive.com.
Is oral health important to you? If you don't like your own teeth, fresh breath, or kissing people, then by all means stop listening. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I became passionate about the product that she created and never want to live without it. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, but I find it does much more. They want you to love My Magic Mud as much as I do, so they're giving you a money-back guarantee plus 20% off. Go to mymagicmud.com and use coupon code FTL20 at checkout. mymagicmud.com, FTL20.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com. The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
And we're back.
We are back. It is Free Talk Live. The telephone number is 603. Well, you don't need it anyway. It's the final segment, 603-283-6160. If you're not already on hold, you're likely not going to get on the air tonight.
Write it down in case you're listening to this later on the archives. You want to call in later when we are live.
7 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 days a week. So if you've tried to call tonight and you weren't able to get through, we're here 7 nights a week. It's always better to try and call earlier too. So if you can, make your call in the first hour of the program, generally we get to more callers. Whereas for whatever reason in the last hour of the program, generally we get more callers. So if you really want to make sure you get on, the earlier you call, the better. But we are here 7 nights a week. There's different hosts and co-hosts and that kind of a thing. But you can bring up whatever you want. It's called Free Talk Live for that reason. And in the studio, it's myself, the captain.
Peakless Mountaineer.
And Richie Rich.
Let's go right away to Josie, who is calling from Virginia. Josie, you're on Free Talk Live.
Hello, good evening to you both, or all, however many you are.
Yeah, there's three, but it's okay. What's on your mind, Josie?
Well, I'm calling because there was someone who said if you're not vaccinated, you should be, this and that and the other thing happening to you.
Senator Samuel W. Bell was the person, and I just like to say his name over and over again so people know who he is.
Well, he's a hell's bell, that's for sure.
He is.
He just doesn't know something that's really important, and that is how dangerous these vaccines are. And in my wonderful magazine called Health Freedom News, which I guess for those who have computers, you go to the NHF, or the National Health Federation, thenhf.com. And anyway, there is a German, was a German chemist who, his name was Dr. Andreas Noack, and he was one of the European Union's top graphene and carbon experts.
Mm-hmm.
And that's in the vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
This graphene
toxin. I actually don't know what's in the vaccine, to be honest.
Well, it's a good idea to know it.
Could be that graphene's in there. I don't know.
Well, it is in there, apparently. Anyway, this Dr. Noack formulated his doctoral thesis converting the graphene oxide into graphene hydroxide. And he examined the vaccines along with other experts, not just him, found that they contained this graphene hydroxide.
Okay.
Now, what he released on last November, Dr. Noack released a video explaining what vaccine hydroxide is and how the nanostructures injected into the human body act as razor blades inside the veins of the vaccine recipients. Would you like that in your system?
Not particularly.
Dr. Noack goes on to explain that because of the nano size of this oxide, that they would not show up on an autopsy, as toxologists can imagine that there are structures that can cut up blood vessels, causing people to bleed to death on the inside, so they would not be looking for them, of course, given to their atomic size. So after speaking out about graphene hydroxide, the vaccines on a live stream broadcast, Dr. Nowak was arrested on film by German police. They're not good for freedom of speech either. And on November 26, 2021, last November, Dr. Nowak was attacked and murdered, and his case remains unsolved. So the conclusion they're drawing here on this magazine is that there is graphene hydroxide in the vaccine, and he was assassinated for speaking the truth about it.
Wow.
I mean, it's like, wow. Now, the other thing, if I have enough time to ask you, this is another subject, what would you do about the situation down south of the border with the massive invasion that we're about to have happen to us? What's your opinion what we would do about it?
Well, so first of all, let's talk about why do you think there's going to be a massive invasion? What's going on that makes you believe that there will be?
Well, they're talking about removing Title 42, which was some sort of a way to keep some reasoning why we couldn't have that many. All I know is there are not enough border guards to deal with this. And we have going to be massing on our border if they're not there already.
So you're talking about illegal immigrants, is that right?
Illegal immigrants all over, and they're about to just rush across, and we don't have enough people.
They're just waiting for the ref to blow the whistle to start the play. And then bam, they're coming.
If someone is invading your house, you would probably shoot them.
There's a difference between my house and the imaginary border between two countries. There's a pretty big difference. So
what about the people that have been bringing them there, the human traffickers and people like that? They're so horrible.
They're very innovative in their techniques.
Well, okay, first of all, people who wish to, move from one piece of dirt to another piece of dirt to improve their lives are doing so on a voluntary basis.
Unless they're coming from Rhode Island, man.
Unless they're coming from Rhode Island.
Right.
And frankly, none of this would be a problem if it weren't for all of these people that believe that voting really does give people the ability to morally decide who lives and dies.
Yeah, I have nothing against people seeking a better life for themselves. The imaginary border is just that. It's imaginary. So the other thing.
Let me tell you this way. When my husband went hunting in Eagle Pass, Texas, and by the way, they've come all the way from El Paso or wherever up to Eagle Pass. They're strewing the place with trash, but that's not the worst of it.
Yeah. So
anyway,
hang on, Josie.
Texas Rangers on
Josie,
on
hang
this.
on. I'm going to put you on hold. So I don't have a problem with people, moving from one piece of dirt to another to try and improve their lives, particularly if they're doing it voluntarily. I've also been alive. I think Josie might be older than me, if my memory serves, but I've also been alive long enough to have heard this cry no less than 3 times, if not a half a dozen times over the course of my life, where, oh my gosh, there's something going on, and there's a convoy of immigrants, and they're going to bum rush the border. They're coming from everywhere. And
it's a caravan.
And that actually never occurs. The bum rush never actually happens. There's not this overwhelming quantity of illegal immigrants, overflowing on the borders. You would see that.
Okay. Well, what would that look like to you then?
What would it look like to me if there were?
Are you picturing like at the border checkpoint that the border guards are just overrun and overwhelmed?
Yeah.
And there's a whole bunch of like running Mexicans just storming.
Or even at like a border town, like let's see, Doug Stanhope lives in Brisbane, Arizona, which I believe is a border town bordering on Mexico.
Okay.
And he comments from time to time on, yep, sure enough, he'll see some immigrants coming across the border, and that kind of a thing, or he'll be able to identify. But there's never like an overwhelming bum rush of these people. Nothing like that ever really occurs. It's just this stream of people. And then there's
a trickle instead of a flood.
Yes. Okay. And then there's also sort of the opposite thing that occurs, and that is like take with the recent hike in gas prices that the United States has seen. There's an opposite effect going on where people from the United States are driving south of the border into Mexico to get less expensive gasoline in Mexico.
And the Mexicans had a problem with that, by the way.
Mm-hmm. Of course they did, especially after all the hubbub of the United States.
The Americans are using all of our gas.
Right, yeah. So it's not a one-sided topic. Now, if you take away countries, states, if you will, if you take away these imaginary borders, it's just people moving. Why do I have anything against people moving? I moved from Seattle, Washington to Keene, New Hampshire to better my life, to be around more freedom-oriented people, to, be amongst a community of people who wanted to make a change to their lives and the lives of others to make them more free. Anybody have a problem with that between all of the 3,000 or so miles that I traveled? No. Why?
Because you're doing it for more freedom, not less.
Aren't they doing it for more freedom? These immigrants coming from the South? Aren't they trying to be more free, more wealthy, to make their lives better?
Generally, yes.
Okay.
Well, and the usual argument that I hear about this is for voting purposes, and that wouldn't be a problem if you didn't give voting all of this imaginary power to defy morality.
Hey, Josie, thanks for the call. We appreciate you. I'd love to talk more about this and everything else, but sadly we are out of time for this episode of Free Talk Live. If you missed any part of our program, you can catch the replay over at freetalklive.com or on your favorite podcast catcher. Thanks and peace.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may